wasting any more time. Let's begin the story. Kakashi-sensei. The spiky-haired Junin heard turning to see Naruto running his way from the counter of the hospital as the receptionist sneered, with neither of them noticing his shadow grow darker and waver. "What is it, Naruto?" he asked, turning his attention to the book in his hands as he always had before since the foundation of Team 7. "I was wondering if you could help me train for the finals of the Chunin exams. I gotta get really strong to beat Neji," he said, hopefully, only to get shot down. "I can't, Naruto. Sasuke needs my full attention for his fight against Gaia or he's going to die," he said with his focus still on the book in his hands. "But I'll die against Neji. You saw what he did to his cousin, can't I at the least get a couple of scrolls to learn from then?" he pleaded, just for his sensei to say. "No, he needs them to fight against Gaia as well, and let's face it. The reason I don't want to train you is because you're a lost cause. You have only 4 usable jutsu that you throw around recklessly. No skill in taijutsu, and you are absolutely deplorable in all other fields. The only reason the Hokage let you become a genin was because he felt sorry for you. And unlike that ignorant fool, I will not let my name be sullied by wasting my time on a pathetic excuse for a glorified academy student." Every word he said caused Naruto to grow angrier, while his shadow shook vigorously, with several large sets of crimson-orange eyes to appear in it before they vanished after shooting the Junin a glare. His shoulders shook. "So, that's it, huh?" He continued to speak about how Sasuke was the better choice when Naruto said, "So that's how you feel, shitty Hitaki." He tried to reprimand him. "Now you listen here, Jenny," Naruto screamed, catching every Junin and shinobi in the hospital and outside's attention. "No, you listen here, Hitaki. After all I've done for this shitty mockery, you have the nerve to call a team. Who was the one to save your pathetic ass from a water prison when his Junin sensei was so idiotic he decided to go into his opponent's natural element? Not Sasuke, me. Who was the one who beat Haku again, me? And who was the one to stand against Orochimaru while the rest of the team was shaking like a little in heat? Not Sasuke, it was me." Taking a breath, he continued, "You can't even bother to follow your own motto, you hypocrite. Those who break the rules are trash. But those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. Well, congratulations, Hitaki, you and the rest of Team 7 are trash." Trying to save face in front of the other Junin and shinobi who were shooting him unsavory looks, "Naruto, don't you dare address me as if you know me, Hitaki. Only people I know are allowed to call me by my name. For scum like you, it's Uzumake-sama, got that?" He continued his rant, "and on the concept of your little rag tag team, or as you most likely claim, it's Sasuke and the cannon fodder. You don't even deserve the right to call yourself a sensei. Hell, I bet Ebisu would be a better Junin than you, even though he's just like the rest of the village and hates my guts. I mean, what kind of sensei teaches his team one chakra control exercise and sends them to fight in the Chunin exams? One exercise, Hitaki. We were fighting Orochimaru for S sake. We could have died because you blatant favoritism, you Uchiha ass-kissing son of a whore." Growing angry, he tried to scold him. "That is no way to speak to your sense. I don't see a sensei. All I see is an Uchiha cocksucker with substandard skills. You know what? I'm done with you. Team 7. With the bubblegum whore in your toy, pass or fail, I will be getting a new team, Hitaki." Stalking off from the hospital as everyone parted away from him to avoid his wrath, Kakashi reached for him only to get a cut on his hand as his book fell to pieces with Naruto's hair covering his eyes. "Never touch me again, filth, or I will kill you. My father was a fool to take you as a student." Kakashi was shocked as he recovered. He brushed it off, ignoring the disrespectful looks everyone shot him. He though going to grab Sasuke. He didn't mean it. By the time of the finals, he'll be back to his stupid ramen-loving self in no time. Oh, Konoha streets, hypocritical, how dare he claim I have no skill or worth as a shinobi? Naruto thought as he walked through the streets of Konoha. As he walked through Konoha's streets, the civilians shot him glares filled with hate, expecting him to shy away like always, only for him to glare back with hate-filled eyes as they burned with a cold fury, making them flinch back. Unfortunately for one, grown man thought it would be funny to trip him and see him fall, only for him to get a wicked slap from the enraged blonde. They all decided to stay as far from him as possible as they made a way for him to not get the same result. "Don't listen to him, master. We all know you're stronger than that pitiful human," one soft voice said mentally as he sighed. Reaching his apartment, touching the doorknob, he vanished. Namikaze Hellsing compound. When he reappeared in a flash of black, he was in front of a large mansion. Compound was an insult to address it as such, and it was quite a lovely one as well. Making his way inside, he thought, thanks Sarasheim. But it is taking everything I have to not brutally murder the one-eyed. Add to the fact that Hinaheim's cousin did what he did, I was already wanting to drink the little s blood, though it may taste like swill. Only your blood would be good enough, master. Ah, such a delectable bouquet and taste. Can we have some when we get situated, master? Another voice asked with a slightly more aged tone. Girls, what did I tell you about calling me master? It's Naruto or Narukoi, depending on how you want to call me, he said, hearing them sigh blissfully as he lightly cut his palm, letting his blood fall into his shadow only for it to ripple. Narukoi, your blood is intoxicating. Though I wonder what that snake man's blood would have tasted like. I did hear snake tasted like chicken if prepared properly, a crazed voice said, only for him to hear the sound of a fist crash against a skull, getting a groan from it. Get a grip, Zoran master needs us to help him fully prepare for the finals. He's already a powerful, he just needs to get back in the swing of things, a more authoritative voice demanded, only for him to groan. Integra, why do you and the girls always do that? He asked, only for a blonde cat to hop onto his shoulder with black ears to show up on his shoulder with the most peculiar purplish pink eyes that rippled outwards that showed mischief, while it held a grin that could be compared to a Cheshire cat. Scratching the lil cat under its neck as she spoke, oh Master Coon. We call you master because master hates being called master, master. His eye twitched as the crazed voice said with a wicked-looking scythe with a gloved hand appeared holding it, as there were a series of tattoos scrawled up and down the feminine arm. I still hate the fact you all wouldn't let me spill the bastard's intestines across the hospital floor, master. He sighed, thinking as he remembered the day he met them, the women I love, all blood crazy and equally as lovely. Flashback. A young blonde-haired boy ran in fear and terror as his breath was ragged and heavy. The bitter winter night air stabbed his bare feet and exposed skin as every step he made another splatter of blood would partially melt the pristine snow. His clothes, consisting of black shorts and a white short-sleeved shirt, were not only dingy from months of collecting dirt and grime, but also his own blood that came from his legs, forehead and lip, and various other wounds that were still fresh as they leaked his life energy. He only had one location in mind, the Hokage's mansion, where his Oji-chan would let him hid out. When he reached the doors to the tower, he saw several Anbu that he recognized as the ones who hated him, including a dog-masked Anbu that would lead the mobs to him instead of protect him. As he made a quick change in direction using the ice on the ground to help him get away, something came over him. He followed this mysterious intuition that told him to go to one place that not even Orochimaru had the gall to go to. The Hellsing Mansion. Stories told of how they also assisted in the village's founding and even helped with the Third War when all heirs suddenly died out. Though it is said people of Hellsing blood were those allowed to enter, nobody has since the reign of the Shodem Hokage. Yet it is as if the castle-like structure has been stuck forever in its prime, with not a single wall was cracked or demolished. Many of the civilians and shinobi have tried to get in and use the belongings inside, but every time they tried it would either kill them or leave them paralyzed with fear from even touching the gate. He continued to run as he came to a large fortified fence with a large pentagonal seal. He heard the mob getting closer as his heart began to pound into his ears. In a panic, his blood-stained hands touched the gate, feeling a pulling sensation when he thought, if I'm going to go, it's on my terms. When to his surprise the gate opened on its own. He didn't want to look a gift horse in the mouth as he slid through the gap and pushed the large oak doors inward, slipping face first on the ice. Struggling to get on his feet, he ran on instinct, looking over his shoulder as the shinobi got closer, feeling several weapons stab at him. When he reached a large cell door, as he fell through the door and down the stone steps, he felt something pierce his right shoulder as his blood splattered the shadowed figures as a loud chirping sound drowned out the loud slurps. The dog-masked shinobi ripped his hand out of his shoulder and tossed him on the ground into what Naruto something that felt it was made of wood as he glared at the Anbu with utter contempt and malice, hoping the man would die a painful death in the most possible of ways. The Anbu said, well, the demon really ate himself over and got trapped in a dungeon. You took a lot of people close to us, demon, our friends, families, lovers, and even children. And I'm going to make you pay. He shoved a kunai into Naruto's left shoulder, protruding through the other side, eliciting a scream of agony, making the man gloat. Like that demon. A special poison I got from the land of rice. Something not even your damned oblate healing can cure. The man continued to gloat as the others in the mob came to their location as they brandished their weapons when they heard several long agonizingly slow. Asterisk SSSSSSSLLLLLLLUUUUUURRRRRPPPPP asterisk Naruto and the mob froze as he sat in the center of several caskets with his eyes screwed shut. The noise came a second time when they noticed the sounds coming from the caskets surrounding him. The mob was so caught up in their revenge that they didn't notice corpses in the room. The only thing that stood out at that moment was the bodies were perfectly preserved in time. And they were now bent over on their knees licking away at the blood that has pooled from his large assortment of wounds as they delicately lapped up the fresh blood as if it would vanish from the world again. What the hell? Was the shared thought as a random Junin said, horrified at the sight. The brittle-looking bodies began to regain structure as they showed the physique of very beautiful women. They continued to lap up the blood from a new source being directly from Naruto's wounds as they were mindful not to cause him more harm as their tongues danced across every stab, every cut, and poison-laced wound with care. If anything, they were dulling the pain he felt to a minor throb. Having there fill the figures stood at full stature as they ranged from a short 5'2" to a statuesque 6'2". The first and shortest was comparable to that of a teenage girl with blonde hair and what appeared to be cat ears on top of her head, wearing a uniform of sorts which just fit her slight curvaceous form and C-cup. The second blonde was a couple inches taller than her fellow blonde, wearing a similar uniform, but instead of shorts she wore a skirt that barely came up to her thighs with white stockings. Her shirt strained against her impressive D-cup bust, with both uniforms being in a vermilion to scarlet color. The third was a messy orange-haired muscular woman with a tan with odd markings on the left side of her skin as she wore a sleeveless black muscle shirt that showed off her muscular frame and firm D-cup and camouflage jeans and combat boot. The fourth was another blonde, but she had a look of pure professionalism and anger. She was a tall mocha-skinned beauty wearing wire-framed glasses and a gray suit showing her curves and high C-cup with a white blouse underneath and green tie as her hair came down below her butt. The second to last be a long lanky brunette whose hair went down to her feet with a lock of hair that stuck up in a curl at the top of her head. She was a beauty herself with her circular frame glasses that rested on her pale-skinned freckled nose and blue eyes. She wore a black double-edged suit and long-necked musket in hand with an enraged sneer marring her beautiful face. And the tallest just coming above her by 2 inches, standing at a statuesque 6'2". She had pale skin that contrasted with her long ink black hair that came down to her thighs. She had orange-red eyes with ruby-red lipstick on her lips. For clothing she wore what looked like a black leather straight jacket that left her arms free to move at her leisure that strained against her large E-cup, and a pair of black pants and shoes. The 6 recently deceased women took a look at the blonde, and unlike the mob who felt fear from the scene before them, he didn't feel that. Instead he felt safe, loved, wanted by the woman in front of him as his vision began to fade, and felt his heart come to a crawl. Looking away from the dying blonde, they turned to the mob as their gentle gaze turned furious. The tallest one turned to the brunette. She said, "Rip. Tend to the young master's injuries and see what his status is." She nodded and glided her way to Naruto, who checked him over while the tall black-haired beauty said, "Several thousand years we've slept when our last master placed us here in a death-like state, as our last master placed us here to tend to our future master. And guess what? It is the first thing we see. Our master, who can't be any older than 4, bleeding like a fresh slaughtered carcass as several grown men torture a child." Her angelic voice was laced with malice as her eyes sharpened glowing red. The dog-masked shinobi who was in the back vanished while the rest stuck around as they were bombarded with killer intent. Unfortunately, they didn't have that little voice in the back of their head that told them to run like a little as one spoke. "So these cunts want to protect the demon. Fine. Kill them all." The moment the first wave was all in reach, a massive amount of blood was sent flying from the first 6 genin, and Chunin had their arms removed. As she licked some of the blood that landed in the corner of her mouth, she quickly spat it out in disgust, saying, Taste like swill," after having tasted Master's lovely essence. That action stopped the oncoming mob cold, seeing her rip the arms off several shinobi without even moving. "Who are you?" one of the remaining shinobi asked. A sadistic grin formed on all the women's faces, showing their glistening white teeth and sharp fangs, even Rips, who continued to stop the bleeding for as long as she could. The tall otherworldly goddess said, "To the world I was addressed as many things. Draculina, Nosferatu, Night Walker, Vampire, Queen of the Night, the No-Life Queen. She listed, taking in a breath. To our master, we are his humble servants waiting for his orders, and to you. She paused as her grin grew longer. We are your nightmares given flesh. Her grin grew dark as she said, but if you must know my name, then let this name be one you take with you to the bowls of hell. Onum Morgana Teps. With her piece said, she charged through the mob as she removed limbs, and the sound of breaking bones and crushed skulls, all with minimal effort, as her white gloves remained pristine as if they were freshly washed. When she was finished, she was quickly put in a hurry. Morgana, it's the master, he's been poisoned very severely. It's gotten into his bloodstream and through his heart. We can't do anything to help him. She cursed, crushing a skull that remained complete as she held their new master's head on her lap. Damn it, we can't lose him, not when he just wakes us up. What if we turn him? He would still be our master and perform his shinobi duties. If anything, it would make him stronger than any ninja could ever dream of. And for some reason I'm sensing another essence in his blood. Integra said, with her contemplating the thought when she saw him cough blood. She relented and had the others assist her in his change as they heard a cracking sound. As the process continued, she thought, I will not lose our new master. Our last master promised a strong-willed man as our husband, and when we tasted his blood I knew he was the one. We will not lose him. Once the process was complete, they covered their eyes, seeing his body being covered in a ball of light. As it died down, it showed their new master had gone through a change. His hair was long and spiky, while it was no longer blonde but blood red with blonde tips and black streaks. He had pale skin, though it is common for an Uzumaki. He was even paler. His whisker marks were thicker. Jutting from his upper lip were two fangs that were incredibly sharp, as were the nails on his hands and feet. The thing that really got the girl's attention was the 9 long red tails coming from his spine and 2 long red fox ears attached to the top of his head. His eyes were no longer the lovely sapphire blue the girls were entranced by, but instead they were a captivating purple that rippled outward with black wisps flowing through it. He tried to remain amongst the waking as he looked around, as his eyes landed on them and were relieved that he wasn't afraid of them and hasn't tried to get out of their grip. Unlike the grins they sported before that bordered on the deranged, these were gentle and loving smiles soothing his fears, though he was slightly worried they could understand, while Morgana said, Rest now, young master. We would never dare dream of hurting you. Sleep, for when you awaken all your questions shall be answered. Her voice was like velvet as he complied, letting his eyes shut as she picked him up as they all traversed the shadows to the master bedroom that had their coffins, as the entire bedroom and bed's dominant colors were black and red. Removing his dirtied clothes in favor of a simple shirt and sweatpants were a deep gray with red stripes running up the legs on the sides, while the shirt was a deep blue. Though they were severely displeased at the state of his health, as he was malnourished, as they could see his bones and ribs from all angles after they had bandaged him to help jumpstart the healing process. Gently placing him between the soft silk sheets, she turned to Rip and Zoran, who had their weapons already at hand. Zoran had a long scythe that had incredible reach, while Rip carried a long-barreled flintlock musket gripped tightly in her hands. She said, I want you and Zoran to watch over the young master, understand? Anyone who finds this room, you two are to kill them without hesitation. Rip said, But Lady Morgana, what about the people who were genuinely kind to our master? They're going to be worried and look for them. She nodded, seeing his memories through the blood they drank, and saw the people who were kind to him and were especially sweet to him. If any of them appear, then keep them safe as well, but otherwise no mercy. They nodded, giving her a salute as she nodded with Morgana, and the others left out of the room and through the halls like vengeful spirits, exterminating any and all threats to their master, as Zoran sat in a chair against the wall as Rip combed a hand through his now long spiky hair, being surprised by the feel. Zoran, you must feel Z master's hair. It feels like fur from an incredibly soft animal, she exclaimed as Zoran was already fighting the urge to do so, only to submit and do so, still sitting her chair only now by his bedside, rubbing his head as she accidentally brushed against his new ears as he purred. Oh, our new master is so cute, isn't he? Rip exclaimed, getting Zoran to nod in affirmation. Naruto finally had returned to the land of the living as he opened his eyes to new unfamiliar surroundings as he remembered the events that had previously transpired. The first thing he noticed was his attire, going from the dirty and bloody shorts and shirt as he now wore sweatpants and shirt. The second thing he noticed was the dull light fading from the curtains as he thought, did I sleep for an entire day? And the last thing he noticed was that he had bloody bandages on his person from the wounds he suffered that had already healed were now dulled to phantom pains that would usually take him a week at the least to fully heal. Ah, you're awake, excellent. A familiar voice he remembered from last night that caused his head to snap in that direction to the point he wasn't sure if he died or not, though he must have because he was in the presence of angels. Standing alongside the wall that in doorway were the other women he saw from before, but one had changed in clothing. She now wore a large red bordering black coat that split into two tails at the end and a white blouse with a black vest that strained against her generous bust, long pants and dress shoes that accentuated her curves and long legs. On the pocket of her vest were glasses. In his opinion, they were all quite beautiful, like that snake lady who would always be kind of him, and the two cat and weasel masked kunoichi who would protect him, and the girl he would always bring injured animals to her to heal them. Morgana caught him eyeing his wounds as she answered his unspoken question. Vampire saliva containing many powerful healing properties if we wish. Asking slightly worried, so all the things that had happened last night were real? They nodded to his question. And those people from earlier, you killed them? He didn't feel any remorse or sorrow for the people who died that night as they tried to kill him for containing the Kyuubi, which he was already aware of, as the seal was so strong he absorbed it, making him the new Kyuubi, as it left him a scroll on his abilities and a summoning scroll. She nodded, saying, "That's right, they tried to bring harm to our master, and such actions just simply couldn't go unpunished," she had explained with conviction. Confused, he asked, "Master?" They grinned as they approached his bed, sitting beside him as Rip sat behind him with her legs wrapped around his waist and started to comb a hand through his hair as he began to purr softly, much to the girl's pleasure, as he leaned back against her chest. "You see, Master, when those monsters hurt you, your blood landed on us. It woke us up as we smelled and tasted your blood as a child of the Hellsing family with a high enough concentration of your blood could wake us. Though it was promised that when you were born, should something have happened to your parents, you'd be placed in our care here at the mansion to raise you as your servants and wives from now to forever as Draculina. Whatever orders you give we will perform, Master," Sarah said as she bowed lightly, only to get flicked in the forehead lightly, seeing him deadpan with his tail extended. "I don't like formalities. If I am to be your husbands, then you must understand you aren't my slaves, but you are given time, my wives and friends. If you can't help but address me as something, either do Naruto or Naruto-kun," he said, making them happy that he accepted them despite what he experienced last night. Integra smiled and thought for a moment. Seeing him, she thought, "Oh, he's going to be quite the attractive young man. If I sensed anything in his blood, he's going to have a lot of wives, which we don't necessarily mind." They were also pleased that he didn't dismiss them so quickly and shut them away inside their caskets deep in that cell like the other children of Hellsing. He then picked up on something they said. "Wait, who are my parents?" Morgana and the others raised an eyebrow as the girl with cat ears asked, "You don't know your parentage?" He shook his head somberly. "I was told I was an orphan. Every time I would ask the old man, he would say they were heroes, but he would claim he never knew their names or knew them personally." Zoran asked, "Old man? Who is Z's old man?" As the others were wondering the same thing but chose to remain silent, while the Queen of Vampires answered, "He's the Hokage. Naruto calls him old man because he's raised our dear husband since he was born, spending what free time he could with him," she said, looking at Naruto, who nodded with a smile. "I should go see him so he knows I'm all right. He's probably worried," he thought out loud. "Then we shall follow. Lord Hokage has quite a bit to answer for as to why you're just now finding your birthright and your lack of knowledge pertaining to your lineage," Integra said in a won't take no for an answer as he nodded only to wince. "Okay, though I may need to change my bindings, these feel rather sensitive, and some clothes as well," he said as they nodded with Schrödinger removed the bandages and got him a fresh set while the others were looking through the building for suitable clothing to wear. While they were gone, he spoke to the two remaining girls in his company and asked, "Who are you two, by the way?" The two girls smiled with the cat girl stopped for a moment as she bowed before him. "I am Schrödinger, Naruto-kun, and I will always be by your side." The taller girl brought cheek against his and nuzzled as she said, "I am the huntress Rip Van Winkle. My bullets always hunt without distinction, mine dear fuzzy love." He nodded with a smile as they already knew he was a fox from his memories as the feline tended to his bandages when the girls returned with a smaller male version of Morgana's clothing. "Here you go, Naruto. We'll go and let you get dressed in privacy," she said as they all vanished, making him smile in appreciation while changing as he now wore a pair of black pants that had two belts keeping them up with black dress shoes that had steel covering over the toes and a silver chain connected to a belt loop leading to his pockets. For a shirt, he was now wearing a black button-up shirt and a black sleeveless vest and black tie. To complete the outfit, he also wore a black coat similar to Morgana's except his was in black. Walking out, the girls gave a wolf whistle in appreciation, seeing how well dressed he was with blonde hair as he changed back. "You're looking good, Naruto-kun. I simply can't wait to see what you look like when you're older," Morgana said, eyeing him as he turned scarlet. Letting the good moment last a little longer, Integra said, "All right, now we're going to the Hokage and get some answers, so let's get a move on." He paused as he said, "Aren't people going to wonder why 6 women that haven't been seen before are traveling with the demon brat?" Contemplating on this and understood where he was coming from, as they wanted as little trouble as possible, so Schrödinger proposed, "Why don't you all follow him by his shadow and I'll just do this?" In a puff of smoke as it dispersed, where the cat girl once stood was now a blonde furred cat with black ears and tail as it hopped onto his shoulder, rubbing itself against his cheek, purring loudly as the girls melded into his shadow, all the while glaring at Schrödinger, who gave a feline smirk. Once they've all settled in, Integra said through their new mental connection, "Naruto-kun, with us connected to you, no harm will come your way. Now head to the Hokage and we can explain everything there, okay?" He nodded with a smile as he ran through the halls and through the large black oak double doors and the large steel gate as it shut behind him, preventing any intruders from desecrating its new master's abode. Hokage's office. For Naruto, the trek through Konoha was the usual glares and harsh whispers that since his birth were things he could handle, as they were only words. But for the girls, they had to restrain themselves, albeit barely, from permanently dyeing the streets of the village with their blood. But for the safety of their husband and master, they decided against it unless someone tried to cause him physical harm. He walked through the halls of the Hokage's mansion and came face to face with the Hokage's main office as he knocked, getting permission to enter. As he walked through the door, the girls saw an aged man who looked to be in his late 60s, early 70s, as the liver spots on his person were quite evident. The leader had a look of worry on his face as he had yet to see his surrogate grandson until he looked up and snatched the young boy into a hug, which the girls were happy to see, as someone in this village cared about him as much as they did. "Oh, Naruto, my boy. I was so worried. I should have walked you home last night instead of trusting the village to not try something while you were alone. Are you all right? Nothing broken, and where did you get those clothes?" he asked in a single breath. Letting the young boy down, Naruto heard Integra's voice, "Naruto-kun, tell him to get rid of the Anbu in his office and put up a silencing seal, and we will explain everything." He did as she said as the guards on all 4 corners of the office vanished while the room glowed a soft blue. When the Hokage asked, "Now Naruto-kun, what was so important that you had me remove my guards and place the silencing seals?" Before the young boy could answer, an authoritative voice cut in, "We wanted to have some words with you, Hokage-sama." He looked around when the cat that had hopped to his desk when he hugged Naruto jumped in the air as it transformed into a girl with blonde hair, while looking down, Naruto's shadow shook as several women appeared from it. As Integra adjusted her glasses, Rip went to take their young master into her lap again as she combed her hand through his hair again. "As you must be wondering as to who we all are, I'll introduce ourselves. I am Sir Integra Fairbrook Wingets Hellsing, temporary leader of the Hellsing family and organization." The dark-haired woman next to her said with a large predatory grin said, "I am Morgana Tepps, or if you prefer, the no-life queen and servant to the Hellsing organization." The brunette massaging the content Naruto's scalp said in a thick accent, "I am Z Huntress Rip Van Winkle, marksman of the Hellsing family and servant to our master." The blonde that had once been a cat said, "Guten Tag, I am Schrödinger. Like the others, I am a servant to our young lord." The bustier blonde said, "I am Sarah's Victoria, a vampire and servant to the Hellsing family." The orange-haired woman looked out of the corner of her eye to the cage, looking at her expectantly as she helped rub Naruto's scalp, said, "I am Zoran Blitz, vampire to our master." Once Sarutobi heard the name alone, he already knew they had something of importance, but hid it, saying, "Well, as you already know from young Naruto, I am Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, and I must thank you for looking after him, seeing as he didn't have those clothes." "And what do you mean by master?" Integra took a seat on the couch as she lit a cigar as she exhaled. "We address him as our master because his father was our master before him, as was his mother. We gave him those clothes because it is befitting of a Hellsing to dress properly. And thirdly, and most importantly," the air got thick as she shot him with killer intent, "why the hell wasn't he informed of his lineage till he was on the verge of dying last night? It was ordered by his father and mother that should something have happened to them, he would be placed in our care to raise him." The Hokage tried to reason his actions, saying, His parents had a lot of enemies and I didn't want them trying to cause him harm. This didn't help his case as the air got thicker. He has already SUCUMB to harm. When we healed him we saw that he is SEVERLYMALNURISHED. And it wasn't your students say when Naruto took the mantle as head of the Hellsing name. And as for those pathetic humans WHO would later attempt to harm him would meet an end by US as his servants. But, he said till he was cut off as Integra raised a gloved hand as she shot him a glare. You will tell Naruto of his parents or we will do it ourselves. And I expect you to give him everything that belongs to him as it should have when he was born, money, jutsu and weapons included. He could tell by her tone that this was non-negotiable as he said looking at Naruto. Naruto, remember when you would always ask who your parents were and I would say I didn't know. He watched the young boy nod as he was afraid of losing the trust of someone he saw as one of his own children. You see, that was a lie. Your father was the fourth Hokage Minato Senju Namikaze Hellsing, the man who sealed the 9 tails away inside of you at birth. And your mother was Kushina Uzumaki Uchiha. My student had advised against you knowing of your heritage until you were older, promising he would look after you, though judging from how the look of confusion on your face has to go by anything you have no idea who that is. He shook his head when he had an epiphany, saying, wait, does he have long white spiky hair in a ponytail? He nodded as the young boy said, yea, I met him a year ago, saying for the orphan brat of a extinct island whore to stay out of his sight. While the girls already knew and decided to beat the toad sage senseless when he returned, but for the Hokage this was astonishing for him to call the woman his student loved dearly as such and would tear it out of his ass next time he saw him. He walked towards the portrait of his Naruto's father and asked, Naruto, do you understand why your father did what he did at the time despite the villagers not following his wish? Everyone turned their attention to Naruto as his bangs covered his eyes till he looked up when he dispelled the illusion again as he took his real form, shocking the aged Cage. I think so. Do I like the fact that I was chosen? No, but if I was the one in his position I could see why he chose me. As a leader and father, how can you ask someone to sacrifice their child to go through with the sealing if he himself were unable to do so himself? Unlike the other villages, he didn't make me a Jinchuriki to act as a weapon but as a guardian of the village. I still wish to be Hokage, but I'm not going to seek the acceptance of everyone who don't care about you because of something so stupid. I know that if someone were to go through what I did and they knew he was of some royalty or clan, they would kiss their ass to get on their good side. Only to the people who can see past that are the reason I intend to protect those who can't. For those can't get over their petty hate aren't worth my time, and if they got a problem with it they can kiss my ass, he said with a cold indifference befitting a leader. He nodded as he and the girls smiled. He grabbed the photo revealing a safe that held several scrolls, one customized Durandal modeled after the German Grossmesser with a motorcycle gear shift, and a Chikudo. He gave the belongings to Naruto and said, the great sword is Red Queen and the Chikudo is a Kai Kogo used by your mother and how she got her title as the Kai no aka she. In the red scroll with the swirl are the sword styles used for both swords. The black scroll holds the bloodline of Sharingan with limiters that will release themselves when it feels you're ready. In the yellow scroll is your father's 2 signature jutsu along with various other techniques he and your mother had collected since their days as genin. Let me say this, they've gathered so many scrolls from taijutsu to kenjutsu along with the Uzumaki sealing scrolls and the Uzumaki legendary summoning scroll. As Naruto held those items in his hands he never felt closer to his parents than at that moment as he smiled, quickly giving the aged Cage a hug. Being released, he said, we can keep this meeting a secret seeing as the council likes to do a lot of things behind my back. And seeing as you're the heir of all 3 clans and the heir of the organization of Hellsing, you will need multiple wives, though seeing as you have quite a few already, at the least you are going to need are 10 with the most being 16. You could hear the perversion in his voice, though Naruto was too innocent to notice it. The girls did as they shot him a glare, making him back off as he concluded the meeting. All right. That is all, Naruto, and also for what it's worth I apologize about my student's unacceptable remark about your mother. He felt Jiraiya didn't have the right to be considered Naruto's godfather after finding out about that. He nodded with a smile, saying, it's okay Gigi, though I'm getting tired after today, I need some sleep. He chuckled, saying, that's to be expected. I'm going to get out of your hair, Naruto. Sleep well, my boy. That was the day everything changed for the better. End flashback. Hello Earth to Naruto, you there? Sarah said as her hand knocked against his forehead till he gave a long lick on her arm, making her retract it quickly. Yeah, I'm here girls, just going for a walk down memory lane is all. So I gotta get back to my standards after all I did drop being around those three for so long, he responded walking into the compound. Though I have to ask, are your familiars still keeping an eye on Hinata? Her father is an ass and I fear that should he wish to take his frustrations out on her this village is going to lose in clanhead in the most gruesome of fashions. It was no surprise Naruto cared about Hinata as a love interest as he wanted to keep her safe in fear of the village being unable to hurt him. They would hurt him through someone he loved. Of course Naruto. My Baskerville hounds have been keeping their eyes on her hospital room from the shadows and outside her room. If they see someone or something they will alert me, Morgana said, making him nod as they came from his shadow, letting him bathe and getting cleaned up wearing a pair of Anbu pants with a sleeveless muscle shirt. Thanks to the training and the nutritious meals comprised of things other than ramen and blood to satisfy his vampire thirst till he had grown strong enough to go out and hunt for himself, which thanks to their training and his blood as a vampire and kitsune along with his family blood in his systems, he grew at an exponential rate to where at the age of 5 he was a Junin, and at the time he hit the 3rd year of the academy he was a Kage in everything they had to teach or was on par with them. Hope you're ready Naruto-kun, because we're going to work you harder than you ever have before. Rip said as the girls shared an identical grin, making him slightly nervous, causing him to quiver as the 3 girls laughed in sick pleasure, thinking, why Cammy, why? Oh, day of the finals. It was the day of the final exam and all fighters had trained every hour they could to prepare. The weather took an impromptu change as the sky grew dark with a light drizzle as lightning rolled along the skies while a thick fog rolled across the ground, and despite the change in weather nothing could go wrong. Sadly for the oblivious, this is a day that would forever prove them wrong. The first round of the Chunin exams will now commence. Will Naruto Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga please come down? Genma shouted as Neji stood there with a confident smirk. Oh, in the stands. I wonder where Naruto and Sasuke-kun are? Ino asked as Sakura scoffed. Who cares about the stupid baka? He doesn't even deserve to be in the same arena as Sasuke-kun, she said till she was blasted with killer intent by 7 figures. I'd watch what you say about my Naruto koi if I were you, Haruno-san. A familiar voice came as the other Junin and Genin turned to see Hinata in the accompaniment of 6 beautiful women, though Morgana now had a pair of orange-tinted glasses and a large red fedora. Although the biggest shock of all was Hinata. Her hair was longer as it went to her mid-back. She also forsake the beige oversized coat for lavender one that was left open, revealing a skin-tight muscle shirt and a pair of tight Anbu pants with high-heeled sandals, though her skin tone had gotten remarkably lighter. Sakura made a rebuttal. Oh, if it isn't the silent princess, why do you care about that baka? He's just going to lose because he's weak. If he's so weak, then what does that say about you then, Haruno? Hinata said, shocking everyone as they watched her and the others take a seat next to her while she sat next to Kurenai. Anko whistled as she looked at the girls, checking them out, saying, and who are you girls? I don't think I've seen you all before. Integra, who was closest to Hinata, said, I am Integra. The girl wearing red is Morgana. The 2 blondes in order are Sarah's and Schrodinger. The orange-haired girl is Zoran Blitz and the brunette is Rip Van Winkle. We along with Hinata-san came to cheer on our fiancé. They all looked at Hinata, who gestured to the ring on her finger, getting an appreciative whistle from the girls as she said, Yup, he proposed during the break before the finals and he should be here. Pointing to the sky, she counted down, 3, 2, 1. Arena. The storm clouds began to swirl as black lightning began to dance across the clouds while Genma said, Naruto Uzumaki, you have 1 minute to get here before you're disqualified. Before the minute was up, a large bolt of black lightning struck the center of the ring, making both contestant and proctor jump on the wall as the lighting crackled across the floor while the sound of screeching bats and the howling of the wind began to surge in the center of where the burst of electricity hit as a large whirlwind to surge as the bats converged in the eye of the wind. Stands. Hee show off. Hinata muttered as the others chuckled while Anko was mesmerized. Anko was someone who always looked out for Naruto since his childhood and over time began to feel attraction towards him, especially when she was in the medical ward of the tower. After her dealing with Orochimaru, nobody visited her but him and Kurenai, making her rather happy that someone cared. True, but it is one of the reasons why we love him, Hinata-san, Morgana said with a large grin that seemed to mirror Anko's own as all the girls who were aware of who was about to appear. Oh, arena oh, as the bats started to form a human figure, the sky was no longer black, it was a crimson red with black clouds drifted through the sky while the moon giving off a crimson glow as it floated in the ocean above. As the wind died down, the bats began to peel off someone's form. First at the thigh, then the chest, and last the eyes which were shut. Once they snapped open, his eyes showed they were a captivating violet that rippled outward with black wisps, and while the pupils weren't round, instead they were cat-like. His energy pulsed outward, causing the bats to disperse to show the person underneath as all the women turned crimson. He even heard some girls whisper, "Damn, he's fine." That had him chuckling. The figure was obviously male, with one gloved hand in his pocket while the other was on his waist, showing the gloves were fingerless with metal rings at the end of each finger. He had long spiked blood-red hair with yellow tips and black streaks that reached down to his lower back, and a pale complexion. He was muscular, but not like that of a wrestler, but more so as a professional swimmer or runner. He wore a black button-up shirt with silver lines running through it and a black vest with a black tie, with his Konoha headband was tied around his neck with a black cloth. He wore black pants with two belts holding them up, with a fox head acting as a buckle with two silver chains hanging from a loop and going into both pockets. He also wore a long black hooded coat with white serpents rising from the hip on both sides of the coat leading up to the hood, with their maws open wide. As he pulled the hood over his head, the only thing visible was his whiskered face and his eyes through the shadows. On his back was a large customized durandal modeled after the German Grossmesser with a motorcycle gear shift. Imagine Devil May Cry's Red Queen. While he had a Chikudo on his hip. With some elongated apparatus hanging in a leather carry-on strap was some red metallic device. Genma, after recovering from the impromptu arrival, said, "Your name?" Giving a dull-side glance to the bandana-wearing man, he said, "Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Senju Namikaze Hellsing, at your service. Am I late?" "Oh, stands oh. No way, that's Naruto. Damn, where has he been hiding that shit, man?" Kiba shouted with wide eyes, though a smirk came to him as he knew Neji was about to get thoroughly humiliated. "The Dobi is lying, there is no way he's related to two great clans and the fourth. He's just trying to make himself look cooler than Sasuke-kun." Sakura said, though Ino and Tenten couldn't stop ogling him, and Hinata and the girls were openly giving wolf whistles. "Damn, Gaki got hot, look at those muscles," Enko said as Rip tapped her on the shoulder, getting her attention, saying, "Naruto-kun is the heir of 5 families. If Zou are willing, he will need a bit of help." They knew Enko liked him and she wanted her chance, while Ino and Tenten wanted a chance to really get to know him as a child. People kept pulling them away from him. "Oh, contestants booth oh. Naruto. Uzumaki," a red-headed girl said. This was Subaku no Gaia, youngest daughter of the Yondaime Kazekage and Jinchuriki of the Ichibi no Shukaku. She was a fair 5'2" with blood-red hair that was done in a high spiky ponytail that came down to her neck, with a bang coming over her right eye, leaving the left eye visible, showing she had sea-green eyes with black rings around them, showing the signs of being a Jinchuriki of the One-Tails, or the fact that she hasn't had sleep in some time. She wore a fishnet bodysuit that went down to her upper thigh and a kimono that went down to her mid-thigh, with a belt wrapped around her waist to grant her movement, along with a red coat that covered her left shoulder, leaving her right bare, and a pair of high-heeled Suna sandals with her gourd strapped to her back. She felt he had changed, though he still had that willpower. That conviction of his made her heart flutter, though her mother kept ranting about how he would betray her, making her hesitant to act. The other genin were shocked, though it was her sister Temari's comment that solidified her resolve. How did he go from blonde loudmouth to red-headed Adonis? I wonder if he's single. She shot her sister a glare as she backed off, though she was snickering mentally as both of them heard the comment Hinata and the other brunette said about him having those clans to rebuild, and decided to say to hell with mother. "Oh, arena floor olo. You didn't answer. Am I late?" Naruto asked slowly, making Genma shake his head in a negative. "No, you're right on time. Though I gotta admit, kid, that was one hell of an entrance. You made nice work on the genjutsu with the change in the sky," he said, getting a smirk from Naruto. "Took a bit of doing, but that was no genjutsu. Anyways, I know we all have quite a few fights to get through, so shall we get started?" Naruto said, taking a cigarette from his pocket and lighting it with a spark of fire that appeared on his index finger, shocking everyone. He nodded, saying, "The first match of the Chunin exam finals will now commence. Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Senju Namikaze Hellsing vs Neji Hyuga. Fight. You should give up now. Fate has already decreed me the winner, as a failure such as yourself is fated to lay at my feet." Neji said, though Naruto started to laugh like a madman, unsettling him. Funny talk for someone who was being pushed back by a supposed failure. Should she have done a single hand sign, you wouldn't have been able to even shit unless she disabled the hand sign. And even though her clan stopped trying to teach her the clan's great taijutsu, she still had your back against the wall. Though if her failure of a father were to have realized she was more flexible than a standard Hyuga and helped her by adjusting the stances to suit her, you would have long since lost. But again, her father, like yourself, are a failure, Naruto said, snickering as he exhaled. Oh, stands. Oh, everyone was shocked by Naruto's comment about the head of the Hyuga clan as Asuma commented, "The boys got balls of steel to say that with the clan heads watching." Integra nodded, saying, "Though it is true, as we've watched her train. If her father were to have realized this, she would be the one standing down there instead of her cousin." Kurenai looked at Hinata, who had an emotionless face as she stared down at the arena floor. She said, "Hinata, is this true?" She nodded, saying, "Yes. My clan stopped teaching me a long time ago. I would go to Gai-sensei when he wasn't training his team, but he had no styles that suited me. Then during the month, the day after Naruto visited me at the hospital, I was discharged and he and I spared together. He helped me adjust my taijutsu and I taught him the gentle fist. I gotta admit, if he had a proper sensei in the beginning, I shiver to wonder how differently he would have turned out." Oh, arena floor. Oh, please, that failure deserves to die for what happened, Neji stated, going into the tales of his past with his father's death at the hands of Kumo for saving her, and with him being branded by the caged bird seal. "So now you understand why you're fated to lose," he stated, only to hear snoring, making him look to see Naruto's head slowly bob up and down with a snot bubble inflate and deflate. Naruto jerked awake, yawning as he said, "Oh, sorry, I suddenly heard a brat and complained and I couldn't help but fall asleep at the rather dull story. If you're going to talk, give up, otherwise make your move." Enraged, he charged at Naruto with his Byakugan flared, trying to hit him, only to grow frustrated as Naruto just ducked and slapped away his hits without moving from his spot. Having enough, Naruto leaned back and kicked him in the chest, sending him flying into the wall behind him. "So much for last year's Genin of the Year. Though I guess I expected too much. Oh well," Naruto said as he threw several shuriken at the cloud of smoke, only for it to disperse, seeing a spinning ball of chakra block them. "Oh, Hyuga Booth. Oh, father, isn't that Hanabi?" Hinata's little sister asked as she eyed their clan's infamous eternal defense in action as he span. Nodding, he said, "Indeed it is. I don't know what lies that boy is spewing about being Minato's boy, but he will lose to Neji, though, to see such talent wasted on the side branch." He shook his head. Oh, arena floor. Oh, so that's your clan's special technique you all brag about? That's another thing about clans, they get a big head and show their clan's techniques for the whole shinobi world to see, giving your enemy multiple chances to observe and dismantle your techniques, Naruto said once Neji stopped spinning as he threw another series of kunai. "Foolish," Neji said as he performed the kaden, making Naruto smirk. "Seal said too," Naruto said as wires came from his gloves as he swung his arms, making the wire connect with the wall of chakra. As many expected them to get torn or deflected, they instead absorbed the chakra while cutting Neji. "You see, should somebody with the ability to absorb chakra, your eternal defense becomes rather redundant. And let's not forget the obvious problem you face with that," Naruto said as he charged at Neji, making him do the kaden again, only for the same thing to happen, but he continued to spin, having difficulty slowing down. He was given a kick to the chin with two front kicks as he leapt into the air as he gave him a final kick to the head, making him go fall to the ground head first, causing the ground to shake with large spider web cracks to form on the ground. Oh, stands. Oh. Damn, what did Kakashi teach the kid? It looks like he hits harder than Guy, Asuma said, only for Hinata to respond. "I've seen Kakashi. And when Naruto came to visit, as I asked who was training him, he said he didn't want to sully his name by training a failure and chose to train, in Naruto's words, his one student over the two cannon fodder," she said, getting the other genin to look at her and Sakura, who denied it. "He's lying, Kakashi-sensei taught us," she said. "Then tell me, what has he taught you that you used during the Chunin exams? Name a form of ninjutsu he's taught you," she said, leaning down till she was eye level with Sakura with a Byakugan enhanced glare. He taught us the tree climbing exercise during a C-turned-A rank mission next. Teamwork exercises. Which help how? Hell, Ino has better teamwork with her two teammates. Since your team formed you, the Uchiha and your sensei showed nothing but resentment towards him as he did all the work. Hinata said, debunking every remark she could come up with. What else has he taught you? Has he helped you find your affinities or helped you find a field you would specialize in? She asked. Yea, he taught us our elemental affinities and fields we could specialize in. Then what were your affinities? I know the Uchihas are Kaden and Raiden, as all of them had them. What about the two of you? I have a Doden affinity and Naruto. He didn't even give him a sheet, did he? And what fields did he say you specialized? She asked again, only for the pink-haired girl to put her head down. As I thought you preferred to talk down to your teammate and make no effort to train. Your sensei is content with you not doing anything. As you fulfill your purpose as cannon fodder while Naruto trains his ass off on his own, seeing as his own sensei refused to help him at least learn an adequate taijutsu or anyone to help him in fields he's lacking in, and most likely hoped that during a high-ranking mission you two would fall so he could train the only person who matters, she said with a sneer, turning her attention to the field as the Junin in the area who heard her lost all respect for Kakashi. Oh, arena floor, oh. Well, that was disappointing. Shame he disowned Hina. Had he have trained her he would have one genin of some blood relation he could be proud of, Naruto said, getting a questioning look from Neji. Oh, you didn't know? The day before she was discharged he exiled her from the clan, quite the story? Naruto said, leaning against a tree. You see, I had just finished training for the day when some of the guards I had placed to keep an eye on her had alerted me, letting me and some friends came to see she was tied to her bed restrained as they were about to place the clan seal on her, Naruto said, taking a look at Heishi as he shot him with killer intent. You know how the arrogant people are. To save face, they try to make themselves seem favorable again. You see, your of an uncle seemed to have forgotten a little law made by the first Hokage when he was alive about branding shinobi of the same village outside of a clan against their will with a seal. When he disowned her she was no longer a Hyuga, thus making the attempt he made a threat on her life, Naruto said, lazily sitting on the tree branch. And what does any of this have to do with something? He said, getting a cigarette butt to the face. Stop interrupting and you'll find out. I swear people these days have no sense of suspense, Naruto said, taking out a fresh cigarette and lighting it. Now you see, the seal they used had more dangerous things placed in it besides the usual seals. Like a command seal, a loyalty seal, a dead switch, and a seal that when given a command you will forget you've ever done it. He didn't know they were on there, but the elders did, seeing as I questioned them there as they sweated like a sow in the sun, Naruto said as his grin grew dark. I apprehended them all and brought them to the Hokage, and by law the offenders would be put to death. Your uncle got away with this because he is a clan head, so he got by with the skin of his teeth as he ran like a little. But the elders, well. Naruto paused as his grin grew, showing his fangs. You see, the Hellsing family were known for their special blood, being vampires and all. So when the Hokage gave the order I drained them dry, seeing their memories, and gained their bloodlines. Oh, the crimes they've committed, the innocent blood they've shed, Naruto said with a sick grin as blood vessels surged around his eyes as they grew pale, showing he had the Byakugan active, though the sclera were black instead of white. He sighed, jumping down, saying, I've spoke long enough. How about we finish this? In one moment he was walking towards the semi-conscious Hyuga when in the next he was in front of him, kicking him in the side, cracking 3 ribs as he flew into a wall, leaving a large indentation with spider web cracks flowing outwards. Stretching, Naruto said, You going to call the match? Nodding, he said, Winner of the first round, Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Senju Namikaze Hellsing. The crowd went silent until several people applauded while the rest booed as he walked towards the contestants' booth. Oh, stands, oh. Well, I can see one Chunin already, Asuma said, getting a snort from Anko. Please, the kid's a Tokubetsu Junin at the least. He defeated Neji with a few hits, diffused and rendered his clan's ultimate technique useless. If the kid doesn't get promoted, I'm asking for the boy to be my apprentice, she said, getting a nod from Kurenai while the other genin were wide-eyed at the show he put on. Oh, contestants booth, oh, troublesome blonde, where did you learn to do that? Shikamaru said, leaning against the wall as Naruto smirched, showing a fang. I've always had these skills, I just hid them. I mean, who would you let your guard down against? The powerhouse or the idiot who can't perform the most basic of jutsu? He said, raising 2 hands, getting a nod from him and Shino, understanding the logic behind it. He walked towards the railing as he stood next to Gaia, who gave him a sideways glance as he gave her a small smile in return as she quickly turned away, blushing, making his smile grow larger. He loved seeing the usually stoic Suna Kunoichi get so flustered as he said to her, I wouldn't get so excited about your match, Sunaheim. She and her siblings cast him a confused glance, causing him to elaborate. He's going to be late, I can assure you. In fact, I bet once you go down, Genma is going to announce that he's been disqualified. He leaned in closer so only the three of them would hear. I also know you three are a part of the invasion. They were put on guard till he said softly, don't alert anybody, but your father isn't calling the shots. It's Orochimaru. The man is wearing your old man's skin like a pair of silk pajamas. So I'll make you three a deal: you don't side with Orochimaru and help me take down Orochimaru's invading forces, and I'll fix the Desert Rose's seal when you come back from your fight, since he won't get here, and I can assure you the Leaf won't go to war against Suna. So what do you say, Haim? I can help you sleep. Her siblings nodded without question while Gaia said, I need to prove my existence. Reaching forward, her sand came to her defense only for his hand to part through it as his hand touched her face. He said, I'm talking to you, aren't I? I can touch you, can't I? I think that proves you exist just fine. She promptly blushed when Genma shouted, will Subaku no Gaara and Sasuke Uchiha please come down to the arena floor for the second round? She disappeared in a whirlwind of sand as it flew to the arena floor as they waited for Sasuke to arrive. Oh, cage booth, oh. That was quite the fight, Hokage-sama, though wasn't Naruto-kun originally the dead last of the academy? The Undaime Kage asked. He chuckled as the aged leader said, he may have been, but people can change if they put forth enough effort. Though the Kage didn't show it, he didn't agree with him on that when a random Junin appeared. Hokage-sama, Sasuke Uchiha has yet to arrive. What shall we do? He asked, looking at the war veteran. Sighing, he said, simple. If he isn't here, then he has no respect for his fellow shinobi. If he can't bother to be on time here, then you can't trust him to be on time for a serious matter. He's disqualified. Now, Hokage-sama, surely we can give him a little more time. Everyone had been looking so forward to seeing your genin fight my daughter, and it would be a shame to disappoint them. The visiting Kage said, only for him to shake his head. I stand by what I said. If the brat can't be on time for something important, then it shows he lacks maturity to handle serious situations. Tell Genma he's disqualified, he said to the Junin, who nodded, vanishing in a plume of smoke while Orochimaru seethed. Oh, arena floor. Oh, the Junin appeared next to Genma, whispering the news as he inevitably sighed, saying, figured as much. The Junin vanished as he cleared his throat. Due to Sasuke Uchiha's refusal to be on time, he has been disqualified as Subaku no Gaia will be pushed to the next round. The crowd booed in discontent as everyone demanded he be given more time as she disappears in a whirlwind of sand, arriving in the contestants' booth. Oh, stands oh. How dare he disqualify Sasuke-kun? Sakura shouted, only for Ino to slap her upside the head. He dares because he's the Hokage and his word is law. If he can't bring himself to be on time, then he doesn't deserve to be promoted. You and Sasuke can try again at the next exam next year, because I know Naruto-kun is going to get promoted from his skills shown earlier, she said as the Junin watching nodded. She huffed as they got ready for the next fight. Oh, contestants' booth. Oh. Told Ya Gaia-chan, so shall I? He said, gesturing to her seal on her forehead, getting a nod, wanting to be able to sleep. Pulling out a calligraphy set, he asked to sit down, saying, this is going to take a while, and Shino Kankuro, it's your turn next. Sure enough, the next match was called, will Subaku no Kankuro and Shino Aburame please come down? He whispered to Kankuro, saying, act as if you're still going with the plan. He sighed, saying, actually, Proctor, I'm not feeling so hot. I kind of had some bad fish last night and it's hitting me pretty hard. I forfeit. The Proctor sighed. Winner of the third round, Shino Aburame. The crowd booed as he sat against the wall watching as Naruto performed the adjustments to her seal, as Naruto said, Shikamaru, if you puss out, your mom is going to kick your ass. So I suggest you at least make an attempt to fight. The Proctor announced, will Shikamaru Nara and Subaku no Tamari please come down? The two of them went down as Shikamaru walked down the stairs. Tamari flew down on her giant fan, slowly hovering to the ground as he heard her brother mutter, show off. Oh, same as Canon. Oh. Winner by FOREFIT, Subaku no Tamari. Genma shouted, making nearly everyone face fault as Naruto turned to Kankuro, saying, pay up. Fishing 100 ryo out of his pouch, he said, how did you know he was going to do that? The boy is a Nara smart, my genetics lazy as by nature. Though he probably had several tactics he could have used to win, he did waste a lot of chakra feeling her out with all those shadow possession attempts. Naruto said, resting with his back on the wall as Gaia had her head against his shoulder, sleeping lightly after he fixed her seal. Shikamaru sat against the wall as Naruto said, "Look on the bright side, your mom won't bash your skull in with a cast iron skillet when you get home at least." Looking at the scene in front of him as he watched the normally bloodthirsty redhead sleep like a baby made him sigh irritably, saying, "Troublesome women." "So Naruto, who do you think is going to be fighting now? There are only 4 fighters left, you, Shino, Tamari and Gaia there. And with the fighters it looks like it could go either way," Shikamaru said as Naruto sighed. "Your guess is as good as mine. But if I had to make a guess, the fights would come down to me vs Gaia, while Shino fights Tamari for the semifinals, with the winners of both rounds fight each other. Though we are about to find out in 3, 2, 1, the redhead said. "Will Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju Hellsing and Subaku no Gaia please come down?" As Genma said, hoping one of them wouldn't forfeit. Even though that would make his job easier, he still would like to see a couple of fights. He turned to Shikamaru and said, "Well, there you go." Gently shaking Gaia, he said, "Gaiaheim, time to wake up, it's our turn to fight, you can sleep more after the fight." Moaning, she gave him a bleary-eyed look. "Promise? You're really warm, Naru-kun?" He chuckled. "Yes, I am a man of my word." She nodded, getting up, disappearing in a sandstorm while Naruto vanished in a burst of black-red fire. "Oh, arena floor, oh. The first match of the preliminary round will now begin," he shouted when a whirlwind of leaves appeared, revealing Sasuke and Kakashi appeared back to back, making all the shinobi who anticipated his arrival thought, "That's it. Are we late?" Kakashi asked, taking a glance at Gaia and Naruto, who had his hood up, only showing his eyes. "Yes, you are, by several fights actually. Sasuke has been disqualified due to him not being here on time," he said, getting a shocked look from the two as Kakashi asked, "What happened to Naruto? I bet he lost, right?" Genma shook his head, pointing to the hooded redhead. "Nope, in fact, the kid here made a hell of an entrance and decimated the Hyuga with little effort on his part. Hell, I'm recommending the kid for Tokubetsu Junin for the sole fact he beat him in Taijutsu and Fuinjutsu alone," he said as Kakashi and Sasuke looked at Naruto, who was giving them a blank stare from under his hood. "Thanks for keeping Sasuke's spot, Naruto. You can go now," Kakashi said, only to get a bark of laughter from Naruto that didn't match the image of the blonde he knew. "You shitty Hitaki. I earned my right to be here. He decided to be arrogant and think his name is going to give him everything he wants. It's time the little shit got a taste of reality," Naruto said as he turned to Gaia when Kakashi grabbed his shoulder. "I said Genin, thanks for keeping Sasuke's place. Now leave," he said, until Naruto gripped his arm tightly as he came to his knees, looking. Naruto's eyes turned red. "Remember what I told you before, shitty Hitaki. Touch me again and I will kill you. Now take your little toy and get out of my sight," Naruto said, tossing him back till he grabbed Sasuke and vanished. "Oh, stands oh. Hello everyone, nice day, isn't it?" Kakashi said while nobody answered him as he eyed the 6 women next to Hinata. "Hello ladies, I don't think I've seen you in the village before," he said, sitting next to them only for Integra to blow smoke in his face. "We don't speak to trash, Hitaki. Especially when you talk down to our fiancé," she said, returning to the conversation she was having with Kurenai. "Whose fiancé?" he asked as she pointed down to Naruto as he was wide-eyed, especially when Morgana spoke to him mentally. "I'd be careful if I were you, Inu-san. Naruto-kun is stronger than you believe," he jolted, getting odd looks from everyone as he played it off, turning to the fight with his and Sasuke's Sharingan active. "Oh, arena floor, oh. As I was saying, the first round of the semifinals will now commence. Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju Hellsing vs Subaku no Gaia," Genma shouted as Kakashi was wide-eyed and Sasuke was shocked. "Hajime," he shouted, jumping back as a wave of sand was sent his way as he thought. Seal set 1 foot, charging Futon Chakra into the string as he swung his arm, cutting a path with the wire in his gloves as she gave him a wide-eyed look. "What, you didn't think these things just absorbed chakra, did you?" he asked rhetorically as he got into one of his taijutsu styles as his hand caught on fire with black flames as he punched forward, sending a fireball at her as it was blocked by a wall of sand as it turned to glass. Jumping in the air, his leg caught on fire as he delivered a blade of fire from the end of his leg, sending it at her, creating a smoldering trench as it was sent at her. "Oh, stands oh. What type of taijutsu is that? It seems like he's doing dance moves or something," Asuma said as Hinata nodded. That's precisely what he's doing. Naruto-kun has secretly been working on a way to use an element without hand signs, and that is the result. What he's doing right now is called fire bending, she said as she pointed out his loose stance shift as he pulled out a large board of water. What is he going to do with that? Ino asked as she watched the water flow out of the gourd like the one holding Gaia's sand, except it was made of a type of leather. That's his water bending, one of the forms that have more versatility, as it can also be used to heal people as well, she said as the water made a pool around him, forming tentacles that he could control. What is he going to pull next? Air, earth and lightning? Asuma said sarcastically, only for Integra to say. Actually, he has one for each of them, though the lighting is an advanced form of fire and very deadly. Should you mess up the stances, well, the built-up electricity will explode out of your body, she said, watching the two fight each other. His mother had made scrolls of the styles that she was making, but she died before she had the chance to complete them, so Naruto took it upon himself to do so, Integra said, putting out her cigar. Arena floor. Running at her with a large wave of water. It made contact with her sand, causing it to solidify. Gotta admit, Gaia-chan, you're pretty tough, Naruto said with a grin as her sand started to dry, going back to her gourd. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but one of us has to win, she said as he agreed, running at her as he quickly created a shadow clone as it fired a large jet of water, getting her sand completely wet. It dispelled as he ran at her as his gloves charged with electricity. Raiden. Soul Strike, he shouted as his hands made contact with her, causing her to spasm until she collapsed in his arms. I think you might want to call the match Genma, she's out of it, he said, getting a nod from him, saying. Winner Naruto Hellsing. The ninja cheered, seeing the display of control over one's elemental affinity while he carried her up the stairs. Cage booth. I must admit we have quite a few shinobi who have quite a bit of skill, Sarutobi said discreetly, watching one of the cage's guards whisper something in his ear. Sir, our forces have been wiped out. I suggest we pull back from the invasion. The only thing I know is that whoever did it left no trace or chakra signature like it came, killed the auto shinobi and left, the masked guard said, making him curse. Fine, tell them to pull back. Sasuke still has his curse mark. As long as we have him, my plan will still prosper. He nodded, disappearing into the shadows while Orochimaru cursed whoever was responsible, missing the multi-eyed shadow coming from behind him as it promptly faded away. Contestants booth. Now to rest, Naruto said, setting her down with her head resting on his leg as he noticed he got a large gash on his arm, which must have come from her when he didn't expect her, making him smirk as he used the water in the air to heal his wound. Uzumaki. Naruto heard as he turned to see the rest of Team 7 walking in, with Naruto rubbing Gaia's head. What is it? If you haven't noticed, I'm coming up with a plan to fight either Shino or Temari for the finals, he said, casting them an unconcerned glance. I demand you tell me where you got those techniques and weapons, Sasuke said, picking him up by his collar as Naruto created a bed of earth from under Gaia so she wouldn't hit her head. Naruto grabbed him by his throat, lifting him up in the air, saying as his Sharingan came to life, turning into a 6-bladed curved shuriken, then it gained a 3-pointed star in the center. Never, ever, try that shit on me again, runt, got it? I won't be afraid to end you, brat, Naruto said, tossing him to Kakashi, who caught him. I suggest you teach the brat a lesson in manners, otherwise that mouth of his will leave his brother as the last Uchiha alive, Naruto threatened as his sclera turned black with his fangs showing. He grabbed Sakura and Sasuke and left, letting him sigh in irritation as he sat against the wall, returning Gaia to her original position as Genma announced the last match of the semifinals. I would like to forfeit, seeing as my opponent is too fast for my Kakaichu to follow and her attacks keep them from getting close. It would be illogical to continue, he said, looking at the proctor, getting a nod while turning to Temari with a bow. Winner by forfeit Subaku no Temari, he shouted, getting a boo as he quieted them down, saying. The finals will now commence. Will Naruto, Hellsing and Temari please come down? Naruto gently shook Redhead awake, getting a groan of annoyance in response. What? He chuckled, moving some of her hair from her face. Sorry Gaia-chan, but I gotta fight your sister now. He created a clone from his blood, letting her stay where she was, making him smirk seeing her wrap her arms around its waist possessively, especially the clone's expression. Arena floor. Are both fighters ready? Hajime, he said, jumping back as Naruto drew Red Queen charging at her. Oh no you don't. Pulling out her fan, he swung it, creating a large gust of wind, making him jump back. I gotta find a way around that oversized fan, he thought, grabbing his sword again as her slammed the tip of the sword into the earth, twisting the handle, causing the blade to give off a loud rumble. He grinned sadistically. Let's party. He charged at her with the blade on fire as she swung her around in a circle, creating a giant tornado which he got caught in. She swung it up, making him go airborne, letting him get cut up and down as she caught him on her closed fan. Oh stands oh. Seems like your fiancé isn't as great as he's supposed to be, Kakashi said, laughing at Naruto, only for a growling sound to come behind him as he and everyone else turned to see a large black dog with multiple eyes growling at him with a vicious growl. Down Basker, the scum doesn't know what he's talking about, Morgana said, hearing more rumbles and growls. I know, but do you really think he would lose so easily? She asked, getting a more pacified growl as it slunk back into her shadow. What the hell was that? Hiba asked as he and Akamaru stared at where the large dog was wide-eyed. That was my hellhound, the Hound of Baskerville, but I call him Basker. Hokage-sama has us as shinobi, letting us work. We've done missions most would be afraid of, she said, making him confused. So that was a summon or something? He asked. She shrugged, saying, it's something like that, but nothing you need to worry about. And Hitaki, how about you take a look to see your now former student at work? They all turned back to the field to see Naruto perfectly fine. Oh, Arena, oh. How did you do that? She asked, making him smirk as he jumped away from her fan and twitched his finger as he pulled his whole arm back, letting him grab his sword. I couldn't call myself a shinobi if I revealed my secrets, now could I? He asked rhetorically as he thought. Gravity and resistance seals dropped from 50 to 49 feet. He grabbed his sword, saying, Futon. Decimating wind blade. Swinging it, he created several sharp blades of wind that when she tried to block it, her fan was destroyed, with her being partially cut up. How? That fan was made from the toughest material in Suna, she asked as she looked at her now destroyed fan. Even Orochimaru's Kusanagi can be destroyed, you just need to hit it hard enough to do something, he said with his sword at her throat. Do you yield? He asked with an impassive look as she nodded, getting a fanged smile. Winner Naruto Hellsing. The Naruto supporters cheered while the others simply clapped. Alright, all fighters meet at the Hokage's office next week to receive your reviews and to give the Junin and Chunin's results, Genma said, nodding. Naruto was greeted by Hinata and the others, being congratulated by the other genin save for Team 7 and the Junin. Man, Naruto, where have you been hiding those skills from? Kiba asked, throwing his arm around Naruto's neck. That was amazing, kid, can't wait to see what else you can do in the future, Asuma said, patting Naruto on the shoulder, making him smirk. Alright, everybody give the boy some space, he's probably exhausted and would like a bit of time to relax, so everyone head home, Kurenai said, making the gathered group disperse as Naruto and the others walked home, knowing that the council will be on their asses the next day. Like Naruto thought the council was going to be on his case the next day, as he had dark circles around his eyes, wearing the same thing as yesterday, except he had a white version of his jacket with the hood up and his eyes glowing in irritation as he held a squirming Anbu by the throat, while behind him his Draculina queen stood behind them just as irritated, while on his back was a large metallic case that was slightly taller than him. What? Naruto asked in irritation as he was woken up at the ungodly hour of 3 in the morning after celebrating with the other genin in the Chunin exams, and while it isn't impossible for him to get drunk, it was a stress relief from the alcohol. They could hear the irritation in his voice as a fat civilian said, "We ordered you here to," he said before he got hit with the Anbu. Naruto was dragging around like a ragdoll as the two tumbled to the ground. The Hokage's law is still in effect. The next person who says what he attempted to will not get off is lucky. Am I understood? Naruto demanded as they all nodded fearfully, save for the Hokage, Shinobi Council and Elder Council. Good, now who they decided to have a council meeting at the ungodly hour of 3 in the morning, and it better be a good reason, otherwise this chamber will be permanently dyed red, Naruto said, looking at the council without even blinking. Shikaku stood and said, "The civilian council believes you were lying about your heritage and demands you give all your weapons to the Uchiha." He raised an eyebrow and said, "First and foremost, why the hell should I give my ignorant cousin shit besides a cold case of reality as I beat his ass senseless? Secondly, my heritage is as real as that comb over the council man is sporting over there." They looked over and saw that the man did indeed have a comb over, who indignantly shouted, "Now see here, duh." He started until Naruto was in front of him with a dark glare that made the room grow cold as the visage of the Kyuubi appeared behind him. He said sweetly, I know a certain word wasn't about to leave your lips, was it? You're smarter than that? The man nodded and sat back down when Naruto vanished and reappeared where he stood before. Now I'll repeat myself, why the hell should I give my ignorant cousin shit? He repeated as Rip took to rubbing his head as usual, getting a content sigh. Because he needs them to get revenge on his brother. A pink-haired howler monkey shouted, getting a growl from Naruto. And hand over your women, Dobi, they will bear fine children for me to rebuild my clan as well as your clan, as I am far more deserving of the Hellsing name, seeing as you would ruin such a respectable clan if it's under your command. Sasuke said, with Sakura and Kakashi following closely behind before Naruto's foot was planted firmly on his throat just as the two of them impacted the stone stands, with Naruto's sclera turning black with his Sharingan active. I could have sworn I made myself clear. Uchiha fledgling never demand anything from me again. For you who has yet to awaken their third tomo or even transcend to the second step does not deserve anything from me. And if you ever attempt to control the women I love, I will make sure you die before you achieve your life's ambition, as your blood will spray like a fine mist. Got me, Naruto said as he backhanded Kakashi, who came from behind and removed his foot. Hokage-sama, aren't you going to do something about this? He just assaulted Sasuke-sama. The mini howler monkey exclaimed, only getting a lazy eye from the tired cage. He questioned a clan head's right to lead, as such he opened the grounds for competition of control until Kakashi interfered, he said, watching Kakashi stalk towards Naruto. Naruto, that was assault, the one-eyed Junin said, getting a huff. He challenged a clan head's right to lead. And by such challenge he lost the moment you interfered, and by the way, Hitaki, I'm no longer one of your little genin, correct Hokage-sama? Naruto asked as they turned to head of the Sarutobi clan. He nodded, looking down on Kakashi. He is correct, Kakashi. After reviewing all of your negligence as a sensei and lack of competency as a Junin, you will be demoted to Chunin and act as guard for the gate, while Sasuke and Sakura shall have their licenses suspended as shinobi and given mental evaluations until they are deemed stable to continue. He verified, getting horrified looks from the civilian council and the three remains of Team 7. Resigning to their fate, Kakashi asked, and what about Naru? He started before Naruto growled. What about Uzumaki-san? You didn't talk about him, Kakashi reiterated when he saw the cage and Shinobi Council smirk. Naruto-kun, due to his skill shown in the Chunin exams, has by the recommendation of the Shinobi of Konoha has been given the rank of Tokubetsu Junin. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, you've earned it, he said, pulling out a modified Junin flak jacket that was black with the Hellsing insignia on the back, which he adjusted his clothing as it was now on top of his jacket. Hokage-sama, such a position is too much for him to handle. He was a genin for not even a year, he's still inexperienced, he said, getting a glare. You're questioning my decisions, Hitaki. I would watch who you're speaking to. Now take Sakura and Sasuke to the Yamanaka compound and wait for Inoichi today at 3 for their mental evaluations, he ordered, getting a subdued nod as he and his two genin left before shooting Naruto a glare while he gave them the finger. When they left, the Hokage said, Naruto, for your first mission as a Tokubetsu Junin, you are to go and retrieve Tsunade Senju so she can take the mantle of Hokage. Raising an eyebrow, not that anyone could see, he said, decided to retire then, old man? You could use the vacation? The Shinobi Council laughed alongside the Elder Council while the aged leader's eyebrow twitched. Smart ass. Jiraiya's informant has told me that Tsunade has been found in Tanzaku-gai. You and your fiancés, should they wish to go, must leave by 7 in the morning. They could hear the trepidation in his voice as Integra said, Why'd I get the feeling there's a but in there you're not mentioning? The group on the ground was staring at him as he relented. You are to take Jiraiya with you. Like hell I'm taking that pathetic pervert with me. Naruto erupted, getting a questioning glance from the Shinobi Council. Why don't you want Jiraiya-sama to accompany you? Sume asked the young heir. The man is utterly useless. I know his background, he's lazy. A man with no boundaries or respect for women, and a pathetic porn writer because he can't get it up and gets sidetracked by the slightest bit of cleavage, he explained. Boy, you must have assistance for this, you don't know what she, a civilian, started as Naruto said. Tall, blonde, hazel eyes, purple diamond mark on her forehead, large bust, and able to get any man's attention who walks her way, accompanied by a young woman wearing a battle kimono who looks like she was in her early 20s and a pig with beads around its neck. He listed as he lazily looked over to the civilian. I get that right? Naruto asked, seeing their dumbstruck expressions making him smirk. How did you? Shikaku asked, seeing Naruto's smirk. I think a godson and should know what his godmother looks like, you know. He asked rhetorically before he grew serious. I'm being serious here, though. If I find Jiraiya following me or does anything to interfere with my mission, you will be losing a second Sannin, Naruto said before waving off the council. Front gate. 4 hours later. Walking forward, Naruto paused when he felt someone creep behind him. When he grabbed the person's wrist and flipped him over his shoulder to see Jiraiya on his back. I made it clear that I don't want you on my mission, Naruto said as he glared at the white-haired man who groaned. Don't be like that, kid. I want to take you as an apprentice. I saw your fights during the Chunin exams and can see you have quite a bit of skill. I can even teach you my last student's techniques, he offered, getting a groan. If you're talking about my father and his Rasengan, already know it, so I'm going to make it painfully clear, Naruto said, grabbing the sage's outstretched hand, crushing it, bringing him to his knees. I don't want anything to do with you. You are no godfather to me, nor will you ever be, you prophecy-obsessed toader. I know you lied to Tsunade about me dying, so I would be alone in hopes of making me some blind sap who forgives anything that happens to me. You also decided against me being raised in my father's compound, so I would stay weak when you would attempt to seal away my bloodlines as well as intelligence and skill. So know that the moment you cross me, I will kill you. Understand? He said, getting no response, making Naruto squeeze tighter. Understand? He demanded, getting a nod as Naruto threw him into a tree as Naruto sped through the trees as the white-haired sage glared. You will be brought under control, boy, he thought before vanishing. Kami's realm. Alright, way to go, Sochi-kun. Tte-bane, a red-headed woman said, watching Naruto's entire life up to this point alongside a blonde woman and their families. I still can't believe my own student and sensei would do this to my own son. I can't believe my own village would do this to my little boy, the blonde woman reiterated, watching him hop through the trees, getting a pat on the back from the redhead. It isn't so bad, Minako-chan. Our son turned out fine. He turned out real fine, the redhead said with a purr as the blonde blushed. I think Minako agrees, Kushina, a woman said, sitting on a step in front of a pond. These were Kami, Yami, and the Shinigami, the three goddesses and most powerful of the gods and goddesses. Before them were Kushina Uzumaki Uchiha and Minako Namikaze Senju Hellsing, formerly Minato Namikaze Senju Hellsing. Can you explain why I had to be a woman again? The former Kage asked, wearing what she wore when she died, sitting cross-legged as her shirt strained against her D-cup bust, much like her wife's. As I explained, Naruto's had a hard life, and to make amends for it we would send the two of you back to be with him. But because you used the Shikifuin, your soul was fractured, with the other half being stuck in my sister, Kami started as she sighed. And because the role of reincarnation and of birth, one has to follow the cycle of birth, boy, girl and boy again, she uttered with a depressed aura over her head. Getting a nod, Kami continued. That's right, and because neither of you were there for Naruto-kun, because of your other student's actions, he will not be able to have the bond a child normally would with his parents, so you two would have to there for him in another way. Besides, everyone knows Kushina wore the pants in your relationship, Kami's younger sister Yami said, getting a snort from Shinigami, while Yami made a whipping sound. No shit, sister. Kushina laid down the law since they were young, even in the sack, she said, smirking, seeing the blonde blush while covering her face, knowing it was true while her wife was smirking at her. So when exactly can we expect to reunite with our son? She asked, watching him land in a forest clearing after 4 hours of tree hopping. It seems Orochimaru's health is failing him due to transferring his soul so many times to the point his body can't keep him functioning. He's already made a visit to Tsunade for assistance and has 2 weeks to give a response. When he confronts Naruto, he will most likely attempt the Edo Tensei. When that happens, then is when you will have your chance. Shinigami finished as they all saw him catch some fish in the stream, as the two women had hopeful expressions on their faces, thinking of the day they reunite with their son. Forest clearing. Alright, got enough rations in case getting her to return takes a little long, Naruto said aloud when the smell of burning wood making him get up after packing up his supplies and follow the smell. When he got there, his blood boiled, as there was a bandit camp with a large cage filled with women, and judging from the smell in the air besides the burning wood, they're either shit-faced or pretty damn close. Landing from his tree, Naruto strolled into the bandits' camp as one of the men said, "Who the hell are you, kid?" It confirmed his suspicions about them being drunk as the man's breath hit his nose making it burn, but reined it in, acting innocent. Yes, you see, I was separated from my caravan and I saw your fire and was wondering if either of you could give me directions to the nearest town. The people who heard him grinned, saying, then they won't miss ya kid, but just to show we aren't completely heartless, what's your name so we can write it on your tombstone? A large grin spread on Naruto's face as he said, well, I'm known as a lot of things, but to save you all the trouble I am Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju Hellsing. The two tallest women in the cage perked up at the name and looked closely as the blonde said, but for you. He was covered in steam as their view of him faded when it lifted. In his place now stood a black and red furred fox with 9 tails with black sclera as his glowing royal purple eyes shone, standing at 5 feet 9. But for you I am your executioner. The large 9-tailed fox said as he shredded the thug with his claws before advancing on the other group with his tails, which they learned could be as sharp as steel, cutting their weapons. I'll give you 5 seconds to run before I drink your blood. He threatened, seeing none of them move before he sighed and killed them all, and drinking their blood, adding their lives to his before he got disgusted. Morgana was right, the blood of the pure, kind, rare blood types, virgins or your mates, tasted like a fine wine that you get addicted to. The corrupt, it was comparable to the watered-down liquor bars sell to make a quick buck. Changing back, he walked towards the gate before cutting the lock, letting them all out. He said, seeing them all step back, seeing what he did to the thugs. He said softly, it's okay, I'm not going to hurt any of you. Everyone step out and gather whatever clothing they've stolen or taken from you all, as well as your belongings. They nodded as they scoured the campsite when they were finally all dressed with what little they had. He nodded, saying, all right, now hands up for those who were from families that were killed by the thugs. A small group raised their hands, getting a nod as he asked, now how many were traveling when they were taken? The other portion of the group raised their hands, getting a nod. All right, I have a proposition for you all. I'm a shinobi for Konoha and am personally close with the Hokage and elders. If any of you wish to start a life there, I can make it happen if you wish, or I can have a clone escort you back to your homes. They collaborated for a moment as he heard a hushed conversation between the former captives when they nodded as a short brunette walked forward, saying, we would rather serve you, Naruto-sama. He raised an eyebrow before he nodded, thinking even though it was just him and his girls, the Hellsing mansion was large enough to fit the entirety of half the clans in Konoha and would be half full thanks to the Fuinjutsu to increase the spaces. He created a large group of shadow clones to carry them all. I want you all to get these ladies to the Hokage and tell him of the situation. Once he gives the okay, get them to the Hellsing mansion. They nodded and vanished with the women, except for 2 women who, now that he got a better look at them, he could feel a familiar presence in them. He asked, why didn't the both of you go with the others? Is your village nearby or something? The blonde, who now wore a black dress with the sides slit giving her legs room as the top pressed against her bust, said, what did you say your name was, young man? Raising an eyebrow, he said, Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju Hellsing, and you two are? The black-haired woman whose hair came over her eyes, who was now wearing clothing you'd see on a nun and both wore a gold cross around their necks, walked forward and said, what are you doing out this far? He said, I've been sent out to get my godmother and incidentally enough my fiancé as well, who was lied to about my death at birth. The Hokage wants her to become the Godem Hokage. The blonde asked, why was she lied to in the first place, and have you heard of a Morgana, Schrödinger, Sarah's, Zoran, Rip Van Winkle and Integra? Feeling defensive, he said, yeah, my godmother was lied to because my alleged godfather was told of a prophecy concerning the fate of the elemental nations. He wanted me to be a pariah as I was hated by the entirety of the village in hopes of me being controlled and conditioned to their will. Sighing, he continued, as to my connection to them, why would you want to know? They saw him get defensive as the tall blonde said, don't worry, Naruto-kun, we have no intent to harm them. We're old associates of theirs. My name is Heinkel Wolf. I'm a regenerator and a vampire thanks to Sarah's saving me when she did. And I'm Yumiko Takagi brat, and don't you forget it. Like Heinkel here, I was saved by the with the black hair. She said rather crassly, making Naruto's eyebrow raise as he looked over at the blonde who was pinching the ridge of her nose. Yeah, Yumiko is a bit out there. She had a split personality disorder, but due to some events that had happened in the past, she became the sole personality. She explained, getting a nod as he scratches the back of his head. Good to know. Although you have yet to explain why either of you didn't want to go back with the others, he said, leaning against a tree when he heard their stomachs growl, making him smirk at their blush. He told them to follow them as he stopped at the fire pulling out the stored fish and asked, "Are you still capable of eating actual food, or is blood the only thing you can ingest?" "We can ingest both, though we have a stronger preference for blood if anything. Why? Are you offering cutie?" Heinkel asked with a raised eyebrow before she and Yumiko blushed when he took off his hooded jacket, hanging it on the large case. "It depends really, because before I found you two I came across a small stream, so I caught some fish. But if you want blood," he started before pulling his sleeve up and held it out towards the two. "You're free to help yourselves. I make more than you can drink, which the girls are quite pleased about," he said, chuckling as he finished skewering the fish with some sticks after descaling them when he felt two sets of fangs pierce his skin when two tongues began to traverse his skin, ignoring their moans as he has become accustomed to his girls doing the same when they're dinned on his blood. While they drank his blood, he enjoyed the fish he had caught till he noticed that the sun was already going down and said once they let go of his arm, "It's getting rather late. If we hurry we can grab in to sleep in till sunrise." They nodded as he asked them if they knew how to traverse through the trees. When they shook their heads, Mi formed a shadow clone to grab Yumiko, who was quite vocal about being touched randomly. "You two might want to hold on because Tanzaku Gai is still a day away if we walk," he warned when they were about to ask why. They shot through the air, getting startled screams making him laugh all the way there. "Oh, Tanzaku Gai, oh. Tsunade-sama, are you really going to help him?" A short brunette asked before getting cut off. "I don't want to hear it, Shizune. What I do with that snake is none of your concern, got it?" The now identified Senju said, giving her companion a glare which she promptly returned as she got up to leave. "Fine, but if I were you I would think about when you meet everyone when your life ends, Tsunade-sama, especially Naruto-kun. Will they be happy to see a woman who left the village and is willing to help a man who wants your home's destruction?" The sage's assistant said, walking towards their hotel room for the time being with their pig, leaving the blonde to nurse her sake cup. "Is she right, Naruto-kun? Would you be happy with me doing this? I've lost so much and you were my only light in that village until I was told you passed with Minato and Kushina." She thought before drinking a few more glasses and left after paying her bill and joined Shizune at their hotel room. "Oh, Naruto's hotel room, oh. You're in, you know that, Naruto? You really are like your mom?" Heinkel said, getting Naruto's attention as he turned to them as the two girls shared a bed while Naruto had his own, wearing just his jeans. "You knew my parents?" he asked, getting a nod from the two of them when Yumiko tossed him a scroll as he read it. She said, "Yup, your folks were pretty awesome, your mom especially. Most kick-ass. You could have the pleasure or displeasure you could meet," Yumiko said as Naruto continued to read the scroll. "Your dad was no slouch either, kid. Fastest man alive and even more level-headed than Kushina, except when someone threatened something important to him. In fact, nobody could stand up to him other than Kushina, as she would kick his ass till he did what she said." Yumiko continued, getting a nod from Heinkel, who just came out the shower, and much like her she was just wearing her underwear. "We always thought Minato and Kushina were the opposite gender they portrayed because when something happened Kushina was the one to deal with it," she said, getting a laugh from the others. "Yeah, Gigi told me about how Dad always did what she said since she had him wrapped around her little finger. I wish I could have met them at least just once in my life," he said, lying down. "What would ya do, Naruto-kun?" the blonde asked as the two watched him think for a moment. "I'd give my mom the biggest hug I could. As for my dad, I'd slug him for sealing Kurama in me and be foolish enough to think the people he had so much faith in would follow his last request without question," he said with a raised fist, getting a chuckle from them. "He is definitely Kushina's boy, huh, Yumiko?" Heinkel said, getting a nod from the curly ebony-haired woman. "Definitely fiancé material," she supported as the two saw him start to fall asleep when his eyes flew open. "Fiancé?" he said, surprised, getting a nod from the two as they went on to talk about their connection to the Hellsing organization and their interest in him as a person as he develops, getting a groan. "I wonder what was with my folks when they made the contracts," he said with his hand covering his eyes, getting a laugh from the two of them. "Just don't think you can get us in the sack after a first date, unless you're extremely lucky," Yumiko said with a grin at the end, getting their blonde companion to roll her eyes. "And Yumiko's mouth goes south," she said, getting a snort from the curly girl, not noticing Naruto's silence. "And you're telling me that since we met him you haven't been checking him out? I saw you rub his chest slightly. The boy is flawless," she said, pointing towards Naruto, who was unconscious as his chest rose and fell rhythmically. "High out like a light already. Guess that transformation takes a bit out of him," Heinkel said with amusement as the two girls turned in for bed as well. See you in the morning, Heinkel, Yumiko said, getting the same from the blonde as she turned out the light. Oh, the next morning. Either of you have any clean clothes? He asked as they walked through the streets, getting a shake of the head. Well, before we continue, we better get you some, because those you're wearing won't bring much defense in combat, especially if my hunch is correct, and with my luck it always is, he said, drooping his head down, getting appraising eyes from the two as they looked themselves over. How is that so? Yumiko asked, tilting her head. With shinobi, those clothes won't hold together if you're fighting. While those are fine for anything else in battle, those won't help much, he said, directing them to a shinobi clothing store. They didn't spend much time in there, as when they had come out they had changed their style of attire. Yumiko wore a black combat kimono and obi with a fishnet underclothing and embu-styled pants underneath with her katana on her side. Heinkel wore a black version of the attire Junin wear in Konoha and her holster on her hip. So Naruto, where do you think we should check out first? I mean, Tanzaku is pretty large, Heinkel said, walking next to Naruto with Yumiko on his other side. Tsunade-chan is known for going to gambling parlors and bars. It would be easier to check the bars and casinos, he said, remembering the stories the aged Cage told him about her and her vices. You just want to gamble, don't you? Yumiko asked with a grin, which Naruto promptly returned as they walked into the first casino when he stepped on a gambling token which he grabbed. Looking at it, he said, it wouldn't hurt to see how far this kitsune's luck can get him, he said before he walked towards a poker table. 2.5 hours and 3 casinos later. I can't believe it, not even a devil's luck is that great, Yumiko said, with Heinkel just staring at him as he juggled a dozen scrolls, whistling a jaunty tune. 28 trillion yen, with 1 token he won within 2.5 hours. 28 trillion yen, what the hell? Heinkel said, getting a chuckle from Naruto as he heard the casinos he cleaned out scream in despair. Let's stop at a bar and get something to eat, I'm starved, he said, walking into the closest one when Yumiko said, What's next? We're going to run into this Tsunade chick, she said sarcastically until she got tired of Heinkel jabbing her in the ribs. What? She hissed until her jaw was grabbed and turned to see a busty blonde with a brunette and a pig. Oh, you have got to be shitting me, she muttered as they followed Naruto while ignoring Heinkel's chuckle. Once they reached the table, Naruto asked, Do you mind if we joined you? Not even looking from her sake cup, she said, It's a free country. Thanks, ma'am. But I must ask, what are 2 lovely ladies doing out here sightseeing or personal business? Tsunade Senju and Shizune Kato, he asked as his hood was still up covering his face, leaving his eyes visible, watching the two tense. The blonde glared at him saying, Who the hell are you, kid? Ain't it a bit past your bedtime? Ordering themselves some drinks, he said, flashing his headband. My dear, I am by no means a child, especially since I'm 16. What I'm here for is a 2-part request on the Hokage and my part. I told the old man that I'm not returning to the village, she said bitterly until a scroll was rolled in front of her. What's this? She asked as Naruto nursed his drink. That is by order of Sarutobi Hiruzen that should Tsunade Senju not return to the village by rule, then she will be considered a nuke nin and hunted down by hunter ninja, he said, getting a wide-eyed look from the 2 women in front of him. He can't do that, she said abruptly, getting a raised eyebrow. Oh, and how can't he? You've been outside the village for some time now, nearly 20 years at the least. It's only because of your Sanin travel rights that he hasn't ordered such till now. Besides, he has information on your Naruto-kun, he said with a grin until he was launched outside the bar. This is going to be interesting, Yumiko said with a grin, running outside to follow the fight with Shizune and Heinkel following close by. Outside the bar. I gotta admit, Tsunade-chan, that was a hell of a blow. If I was any normal human, that would have blown my head off my shoulders, or you slacked in training, Naruto said, popping his neck as he dislodged himself from the wall. Who the hell do you think you are talking about? My dead fiancé, she said in a rage, standing across from him, watching him seal away his weapons. Oh, just someone who knows him quite well is all. But if you want answers, you gotta get serious, he said, getting into a stance when he removed his gloves as she popped her knuckles. Hey, against a kid like you I won't need to get serious. But tell me, Gaki, what is your name so I can write home to your folks saying sorry I killed their brat, since 1 fingers is all it's going to take, she said cockily, getting a smirk in response when he closed the distance between them and kicked her in the stomach, launching her back. And we must work on your arrogance. One as beautiful as yourself only mares your beauty with such actions, he said when she got back up with a grunt. Not bad, that actually hurt, she said calmly while on the inside she was freaking out. How the hell can anyone hit that hard? Is that how the pervert feels to be on the receiving end of one of my punches? If so, I owe Jiraiya an apology, she thought while blocking a punch with one hand, feeling her bones creak. Pushing him back, he said, I win. Everyone watching the fight go wide-eyed as they saw some random kid beat a Sanin. What, how did you win? You only knocked me down once, she exclaimed until he disappeared in a puff of smoke that in his place was a replica of her who said, Hey, against a kid like you I won't need to get serious. But tell me, Gaki, what is your name so I can write to home to your folks saying sorry I killed their brat, since one finger is all it's going to take. The double said, letting everything sink in. You used your whole hand to block my punch, meaning you broke the rules of the fight. As such, I win by disqualification, he said with a grin that reminded her of a sadistic Kushina. What is your name, kid? She asked, seeing his arms fold across his chest. Well, to the populace of Konoha by a margin I'm called the Demon Brat, but I prefer monster, far more human in my book. But I'm called Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha Namikaze Senju Hellsing. Your cousin and fiancé, he said, pulling his hood from over his head, revealing his red and black hair. Her eyes went wide as she saw his face and said, I was told you died. His eyes narrowed, saying, Yeah, a lot of people have been told that, especially by a spiky white-haired sage. Come on, let's head to the hotel, I'll explain everything then. They headed back to everyone else as he paid the owner of the bar they partially destroyed while they walked towards the hotel. Hotel room. The hotel they were staying at was filled with killer intent as Naruto filled his fiancée in on the last 16 years of his life as Tsunade, Yumiko and Heinkel were shaking in anger while Shizune was speechless. That bastard. When I see him I'm going to shove my foot so far up his ass I'll be wearing him as an oversized leg warmer, she said enraged. She mourned Naruto's death for years, imagining what her life would have been like with Naruto involved, and he got off on seeing her wail. Oh yes, he was going to pay. The old man tried to find you, but you're harder to find than some would think. And for those who did find you, they came back with some pretty nasty injuries, he said, chuckling as the Hokage showed him some shinobi who were sent after her. She even went as far as to give some of them a sex change, she said, sitting next to him with her arms around him. And Orochimaru knew. Oh, I'm going to kill him too. I take it he offered something for you in exchange for his assistance, Yumiko asked, getting a nod from the two women. He offered Tsunade-sama a chance to reunite with her little brother Naoki and Naruto-kun while bringing back my Uncle Dan, Shizune said, holding Taunton, who was being eyed by Yumiko, who was licking her lips making the pig squirm. And in exchange I would tend to his medical problems. He didn't explain why, but his health has been failing him for some time now. He said in 2 weeks we would meet to give him my answer, but knowing my fiancé is alive I don't have to do shit, Tsunade explained. So that gives us 2 weeks to get you up to snuff. No offense, Heim, but like the toad you let your skills drop in everything but medical ninjutsu and taijutsu. For Orochimaru now, you're just a difficult opponent when originally you were someone he couldn't touch, Naruto said, getting a nod from her. But how am I going to get back to my original strength in that small amount of time? She asked, getting a snort. Hello, nine-tailed fox, vampire hybrid who surpasses his parents in fuinjutsu and time, space manipulation. What am I, chopped liver? He said with his eyebrow raised as his tails and ears appeared. Ah, it would be difficult to forget someone as hot as you, Foxy, Yumiko said, making him chuckle that started to turn sinister, making the women in the room, Pig included, shake in fear and admittedly growing wetter. I'm going to wish Orochimaru killed me some reason, Tsunade thought as they went to sleep, getting ready for training tomorrow and the days after. Again, give me another 100,000. Naruto shouted, overlooking Tsunade's training for the past week and a half, going into the second week since he turned her into a vampire kitsune hybrid, as it not only reduced her age to her early 20s but it made her immensely stronger, so much so that the strength she had before pales in comparison. He had also turned Shizune so she could continue to stand by Tsunade's side, although all of them wound up agreeing with each other to share him. How they did this so quickly he would never know, but the two change. Shizune's skin lightened as her hair grew just a little past her neck as her eyes gained a red undertone with a fang just barely peeking from her upper lip. She changed her attire to the Junin uniform, with the clothes being black and the vest being black with red lining, as the back had both the Senju and Hellsing insignia on the back. Her bust grew as well from the low B to low D. Tsunade had made the most dramatic of changes when she didn't have her illusion seal on her. She was just barely taller than Shizune as her eyes darkened with rings in them like Shizune as her bust grew to a large H as they grew past her original F as they became more firm and supple. Her muscle mass had readjusted to make her stronger and faster as both of their reserves grew exponentially as Shizune's grew from low Junin to high Kage. Same for Tsunade's, and their Yukai network also made an impressive factor. Right now he had the two of them working on their arm strength with gravity and resistance seals on their persons, with the two doing vertical push-ups with him standing on their feet as both him and his clone were holding giant boulders, while they had thousands of clones working chakra control exercises and jutsu and bending as a means to have them learn the family arts since they would all be joining soon. Yumiko Heinkel weren't left out as he had them working on hand-to-hand and weapons skill. Chakra included as to give them the even footing with other ninja like his other girls. Tsunade and Shizune had been trained to their breaking point several times over as they grew from their old skill level to one that thanks to their new blood made it difficult for them to grow weak as they could exercise for weeks on end and not even feel the lightest bit winded, something the girls cursed since they started. Who knew Naruto could be such a slave driver, huh? The only times he let them relax was their allotted lunch break, which for Tsunade consisted of a special blood sake and some snack, and Shizune just blood straight from the vein. "Ah, come on Naruto-kun, we've been at this for the last week and a half," Shizune complained before the weight she had increased even more, making her struggle. "No complaining. Do know that when we return to Konoha the training will only get harder because what I'm giving you now is the same exercises the girls put me through when I was a child. Hell, Tsunade's super strength is now your only strength, and trust me, the training back home is going to be a real to deal with," he said as both he and his clone shivered as the ghostly sounds of laughter haunted them. "The laughter, the horrible, horrible laughter," he muttered before he shook it off, seeing them finish as he and his clone hopped off their perch as the clone dispelled after a sucker punch from Naruto as both Shizune and Tsunade got up looking at Naruto with raised eyebrows before turning to Heinkel and Yumiko, who just finished their day's training. Is Naruto-kun okay?" Tsunade asked, getting a so-so motion from Yumiko as Heinkel shrugged. The training he went through was by all definitions hellish, to the extent that the Shinigami himself would know the true definition of fear. As vampires, we're essentially immortal, as hardly anything can kill us due to how many souls we ingest from the people we kill, that being if we're killed in the first place. She started watching him now get into fetal position, ignoring Yumiko's snorts of amusement, while both Tsunade and Shizune looked at the now mumbling Naruto, who had a rain cloud over his head. "The training couldn't have been that bad, could it?" Shizune asked, frightened, as she already went through Naruto's training and that was bad as is, but for him, someone who could fight Tsunade even as she was being reduced to a quivering mess wasn't an encouraging sight to behold, especially now that he was whimpering like a kicked puppy. "Again, Shizune, it would teach the Shinigami the true meaning of fear, darling. If that isn't bad, I don't know what to tell you, but you'll have to wait and see, because he went through their training since he was a child. You've already got experience, but they will teach you everything about vampires and other things till you throw aside your humanity," Heinkel said, enjoying the sight of the two newly turned kitsune, vampire hybrids, pale. What could she say? It was a quirk of hers to see someone pale in fear. It got her off. Yumiko was the same, and seeing all three of them like this was a real trip for these two. Letting the three recover, Naruto said as he had finally composed himself, "All right, we'll take a break for lunch, so hunt down some bandits and drink 'em dry. The more you drink, the stronger you get." Turning to the clones, he said, "And for you all, I want you to dispel in groups of 10 in an interval of 5 minutes. They nodded as the first of 20 vanished in a puff of smoke, while the others continued training until the next 5 minutes were over as the girls all went to get something to eat. As he meditated in the shade of a tree, as he said, "You can come out now. I know you three have been following me since I left the village, although for 3S ranked ninja to follow me makes me slightly curious. Kisame Hoshigaki, Zetsu, Izumi Uchiha," he said as the tree came out of the trees. Kisame said with a grin, saying, "Pretty ballsy calling us out, Gaki, know who we are and all." Naruto said, as stoic as usual with his hood up, he said as his fangs became visible as his eyes darkened into a deep red. "I'm far stronger than you believe, and I can assure you that I can beat a few S-ranked ninja, but if you don't believe, well, how about you look at your plant friend?" Looking over, they went wide-eyed as Zetsu's body fell lifelessly to the floor with 2 puncture wounds on the neck as the Naruto before them disappeared in a burst of smoke, showing the one that killed Zetsu was the original. He smirked, saying, "So your goal is to collect the 9-tailed beast to recreate the Jubi, huh? I hate to inform you, but that isn't going to work." Wide-eyed Kisame asked, "How did you know that?" Shrugging, his pupils narrowed into slits as they glowed, saying, "Well, I am a vampire, and by draining a person of their blood I get everything in their itty-bitty minds, from jutsu to memories. I know your weaknesses, and like without your Seimeda you're as useful as a fresh out of the academy genin." Drawing his red queen, he said, "And I also know that there are, or should I say, were 10 of you as have killed your little plant friend. I think I might keep this as a souvenir, or maybe not." Plucking the ring from the plant man's finger, he placed it under his heel and crushed it as he burned the corpse to a crisp after he cut off his head and sealed that away as well. Looking at them, Kisame could only express actual fear, while Izumi remembered these eyes as she had watched over him as a kid and killed a few bandits and the truly sinful. Grinning, Naruto said, "Of course, Fishy-chan, if you want to die that's fine, unless you want to return to your base, otherwise I still got to train and kill a certain snake in a few days." The large shark man growled before charging at Naruto when the bandages around his sword snapped, showing it looked like a club that had scales super glued to it when Naruto blocked, focusing his Yukai into it as the large club-like weapon connected as he grinned. "Just a word, kid, my sword doesn't cut. It shreds," he said when he dispelled into a pool of water as he felt something scratched against his back as he grinned. "And I should remind you, I know of your weakness, another being that while it can absorb the Yukai of a Jinchuriki because it's watered down, I have absolute Yukai and chakra. You're screwed against me," Naruto said as his teeth shone under his hood. Disappearing again, a large gash formed on Kisame's chest as he felt a strong heat follow soon after as the wound cauterized itself as a large burning scar was left on his chest. Naruto said as he stood next to them, "You know, I kinda expected the two of you to be more of a challenge, but the swordsman is all talk, and you, Izumi-hime, I wish you would return with me. I miss my Karasu Kogo." Looking at her, he saw she missed him just as much as Kisame was about to say something. He was hit with an attack as Izumi was standing behind him with her old Enbu katana in hand. "You would dare betray the Akatsuki, Itachi? And why the hell does he call you Izumi?" he asked, getting a bored eye roll. "I would think it's obvious, as I sound like a woman. The fact that when I don't have on my cloak my chest is visible. Or the fact that that Toby guy calls me Itachi-chan. Any of these points are a fair guess, but no, my loyalty was never to the Akatsuki," she said, removing her cloak, and was now in her old Uchiha clan clothing with a squared collar showing a bit of cleavage as she stood next to Naruto, wrapping her arms around his neck, kissing him on the cheek. "Then I'll just kill you and get the reward, and Leader-sama will pay me for getting the Kyuubi Jinchuriki," he said, charging as the two deftly avoided his strikes as Naruto focused more of his Yukai into his sword as he and Naruto clashed before Seimeda shrieked in pain as it jumped out of his hands and onto Naruto when it clung to his back when it started to purr, getting raised eyebrows from both Naruto and Izan. Looking at her, he asked, "Has this happened before, or is this an attack?" She shook her head, saying, "No, if this was an attack, then Kisame would be screwed because his reserves are connected to Seimeda as they both feed each other chakra. Without it he would be leaving himself open because of his lack in taijutsu." Shrugging, he swung his sword at Kisame, creating a sharp blade of wind, severing his head with a dissatisfied sigh as he sealed that away before draining Kisame of his blood as well before burning his corpse as he sealed away Seimeda. He sighed when Izumi wrapped her arms around his neck, letting him lean back into her chest while she combed her hands through his hair, saying, "You need a haircut, Naruto koi." Rolling his eyes, he said before they drooped as sleep started to claim him, "And I'll tell you what I tell everyone else. Nobody touches my hair." Catching him as he fell asleep, she crushed her Akatsuki ring while watching the ring on Kisame continued to melt along with her cloak while grabbing a pair of scissors and proceeded to snip away his extended lengths of hair as she continued to style it while he was blissfully unconscious, seeing as he still had those dark rings around his eyes. Tsunade and the others returning came to see this as Yumiko said with her sword in hand, "Who are you and what are you doing to Naruto-kun?" Not even giving her glance, she said, still styling his hair, "I'm just spending time with my Naruto-kun. He looked like he hasn't had a true moment to relax, so I used a subtle genjutsu that would work on him and decided to give him a haircut. He really needed it." They did agree with her on that, but the amount of hair she was cutting was enough to make a carpet for a large living area if they were able. After shrugging, Tsunade brought out a kunai and said, "Let's at least straighten out his hair once you're finished cutting it so it won't look like you just attacked him with a pair of scissors," while Shizune produced some type of ribbon out of nowhere, getting raised eyebrows from the others save for Naruto, who was still unconscious. "Wow, Shizune, I never would have thought you were into that type of thing," Tsunade said with a grin when she noticed the meaning into it as she blushed before denying it. It's not for that sensei, it's to tie his hair, seeing as Izan-san has done it the way she did. She explained, causing everyone to take a closer look, and agreed, seeing as she basically cut a lot close to the scalp, while near the neck was a thick amount of hair still reaching rather low as Shizune braided the length of hair and used the band to bind the rest of the hair together. Imagine Akito's hair from Code Geass Akito exiled. They managed to remove the lost hair as he just woke up stretching, saying, "I hadn't slept that peacefully in a while." Looking around, he raised an eyebrow, saying, "Wow, you're all back already. I wonder how long I've been asleep." Izumi spoke up, saying, "A couple of hours, and I must say you do look more handsome with your haircut." Raising an eyebrow, Tsunade pulled out a mirror for him to look at as he saw his hair was short in the front and back save for a thin braided ponytail that reached his knees, as he gave it an appraising look before nodding with a slight smile. "I like it, not too much hair to be a bother and just enough to keep people from attempting to grab at it during a fight," he said before Izumi brought him into a kiss, which returned as they separated, causing his eyebrow to raise. "Not that I didn't like that, but why?" he asked as her usual stoic expression formed a blush, making him grin, seeing his usual expressionless sensei friend fluster. She said, "I missed being around you, Naruto-kun, and I want to stay around you like before, so would you turn me like you did Tsunade and Shizune?" He nodded, saying, "Sure, but it's going to have to wait for when we get back to the village. I've drained myself just turning Shizune and Tsunade, and with how low the amount of bandits there are thanks to the girls, so we're going to need some blood for your change." Looking at her closely, he said, "You've been using the Mangekyo aspect of the Sharingan and you're starting to suffer the effects, aren't you?" Ashamed, she nodded, getting a flick to the forehead as he said, "I guess it's lucky for me that a few overzealous Uchiha who wanted my head decided to attack me. I guess it was a good call to collect their eyes." She smirked, saying, "You always were one to think ahead in case of things, Naruto-kun." Returning said smirk, he said, "It helps to be quite the actor as well. Maybe if I retire I could take to the silver screen." Everyone imagined him as an actor in various films ranging from action to horror and could agree that he would do rather well before their imagination started to go south as droplets of blood fell from their noses, making him roll his eyes, knowing exactly what they were thinking. Clapping his hands, he said, "Now that we got that bit of perversion out of our minds, ladies, how about we head back to the hotel? That snake is coming tomorrow, and I want us all to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed." "As bushy as yours?" Izumi asked, scratching the spot where his ears were as he turned to jelly under her fingers when his tails and ears appeared, purring, much to their delight. "I wish Rip never told you about that," he groaned as everyone laughed at his humiliation as he gently slapped away her hand and hid his ears and tails. "Fun at my weakness aside, we got to make a plan besides obliterate Orochimaru. The is strong, and I only taught Tsunade and Shizune what I knew in terms of techniques and abilities as vampires and kitsune," he said, sitting back down. "As I said, Orochimaru already has his assistant Kabuto as a factor, with him being at least Junin in skill, where he focuses on medical ninjutsu into his taijutsu," Tsunade said, getting a nod from Naruto. "I was thinking some of us could split up. With our size, we could split up and have some of us fight his partner while the rest of us fight Orochimaru as a way to keep the two of them apart," he said. "But who would fight who?" Shizune asked, seeing him close his eyes for a moment. As Tsunade said, Kabuto is a close-range fighter with his medical ninjutsu, taijutsu, and with him using that chakra to use the chakra scalpel jutsu, meaning if he does fight, his reserve would have already been spent. Izan pointed out, getting a nod from Shizune. "If this is the case, we need a mix between long and close-range fighters, so Yumiko, Heinkel, and Shizune, you three will fight Kabuto and Tsunade. Izumi and I will deal with the pale snake. Anko-chan has been wanting a new snakeskin belt," he said, getting a series of nods from everyone as they returned to the hotel. "Oh, hotel room, oh. You know it's been a while since we left the hotel, but question, how are we going to all fit on the bed?" Naruto asked as he looked to see the room only had one bed, though to his knowledge it was larger than he saw it before. "Honestly, Naruto-kun, it should be obvious," Tsunade said, releasing her seal, changing to her true appearance, as did Shizune, while they all removed their clothing till they were just in their underwear as they urged him to do the same, as he relented until he was just in a pair of boxers as a serpentine tattoo was seen on his right arm, going from the back of his hand to the neck where the head of the creature had its jaws poised to strike. Joining them, he laid in the center with Shizune and Tsunade on his left, with them wrapping their arms around his arm and waist, while Yumiko and Heinkel were on the right, mirroring Tsunade and Shizune, while Izan, to her joy and the others' ire, got to take full comfort on his chest with her head on top of his heart. Sighing in comfort, he closed his eyes, letting sleep reclaim him, joining the others in the blissful realms of sleep. Oo Akatsuki Base Oo. Report. What happened to Itachi, Zetsu and Kisame? A man said with a holographic image of his figure with purple ringed eyes as they all looked to see that the finger that those three stood on were destroyed. Who were they sent after? A man with long blonde hair asked, looking at the destroyed fingers as the blue-haired woman said. They were sent after the Kyuubi Jinchuriki Naruto Uzumaki because from Zetsu's report he was seen heading towards Tanzaku Dai on his own. From his academy reports he was by all means a moron incapable of forming even the simplest of clone jutsu. She said, also curious about how a no-talent genin eliminated 2S rank ninja and who could have possibly caught on to Zetsu. He was so stealthy not even the Hyuga's Byakugan could find him. Could the overgrown weed's info be wrong? I mean, we even lost track of the One-Tails as she hasn't been seen in Suna since the Chunin exams. A hunchbacked man said, doing what many assumed was a shrug. The holographic man said, no, Zetsu's information was always absolute. For now we'll save the 9 tails and 1 tails for a later time and prepare to get more funds. We'll continue to collect the tailed beast when the time is right. They nodded as each figure flickered out of existence, as did the ring-eyed man who thought, Uzumaki, you will now the wrath of a god. As he vanished, a man with the orange swirl mask thought, it seems there is more to the 9 tails than anyone imagined. Disappearing in a vortex, he faded from existence as if he was never there. Oh, the next morning, again, best sleep ever, Naruto muttered, feeling an incredible warmth spread through him as he looked around to see the girls all managed to lay on him to his wonder. Making a clone, he substituted with him, watching as the clone gets smothered from both sides of his head by Tsunade's and Heinkel's as the clone tossed grin, getting an eye roll in exchange as he unsealed a change of clothes and bathed while he had another clone make a meal for everyone. As he finished, he walked out to see that the clone they were all sleeping with was gone, as they all had dressed up as well as they ate their meals of either blood or cooked meals, as he joined them with a simple breakfast of eggs, sausage and bread and jam. The girls back home got him into some pretty interesting meals that were from the old world before the Sage and 10 Tails came about. Seeing him join them during their meal, they greeted him as he asked, Hey Suheim, when were you supposed to meet Orochipido? Looking up from her meal as she was absently stuffing her face, she swallowed, saying, We're meeting today at noon sharp. He's still expecting me to heal him, though he didn't explain why he needed me to do it. Thinking, he said, From what Ankoheim told me, the curse seal has the person applying the mark, he cuts out a small portion of his soul. The only reason I could imagine he would do this is because the curse seal is a twisted form of senjutsu, where the more the user taps into its power, the more it weakens the bearers, while allowing said snake's soul to swallow the users, making that person's body his own. Shrugging, Izumi said, But how does that apply to Tsunade-sama healing him? He said, When the old man let me research the curse seal, I came across the notes. As I said, he cuts a portion of his soul to influence the bearer of the seal. The only hypothesis is that with how many times he's placed that seal on people, his own body or whose ever body he overshadowed is starting to reject him. Like a donated organ being rejected by the person it was transplanted into, Shizune said, getting a nod. Exactly, this would also be why he wants Sasuke, Naruto said, getting a raised eyebrow from Izumi. She asked, But why does he want my little brother? Sighing, he said, Since the massacre he became hell-driven to kill you. He even thinks you're a guy how I'll never know, but he only knows you by your mosque's name, Itachi, or because your bastard father wanted a boy, so he made you pretend to be one. Brushing that aside, he continued, The point is, after the massacre he's become power-obsessed and corrupt. Anyone who he feels threatened against, he would do anything to stop them to remain at the top. During my time in the academy with him, he hospitalized 7 girls and 10 boys to the point there was no way they could proceed further in their shinobi training. He almost killed 2 other kids for telling him to piss off with his attitude. Astonished, Tsunade asked, And he didn't get in trouble? Hell, institutionalized or tested mentally to see if he was fit to continue? Shaking his head with a scowl. No, since we were children at the time, anything we did fell under the civilian council, and they are his biggest supporters as they think the people he injured were deserving of what happened to them. And as for the mental evaluations, Yamanaka's who did the evaluating were the Uchiha supporters, saying he was perfectly fine. I wouldn't be surprised if instead of Inoichi doing it this time he got another supporter. Curious, Heinkel asked, What happened? During the Chunin exam finals we were all expected to be on time for our fight. I was and decimated Neji Hyuga. When Sasuke's fight against Subaku no Gaia, he was a no-show, causing him to forfeit as I was the next to fight her. When she and I were about to commence our fight, him and Kakashi, the person training him, interrupted our match, expecting the Hokage to remove me from the fight and let him take my place. Same for Kakashi. Sadly for them, that didn't happen, as when Kakashi tried to pull rank, I told him to piss off. Naruto continued to explain when Izumi said, "What happened after?" she asked as he sighed. "The next day after I won the Chunin exams, I was called to the council chambers where you wanted me to hand over not only my clan status as Uzumaki, Senju, Namikaze, Uchiha and Hellsing, but to give him my fiancés and belongings, claiming I was unfit to have them," he said, getting a growl from each of them as he raised his hand. "Due to him involuntarily activating a village law that was established during your great-grandfather's time, Su-chan, he challenged for my right to lead said clans, as I had nearly embedded him into the walls of the council chambers. The Hokage, having had enough, had both him and Sakura Haruno, daughter of Sakiri Haruno, were to have a mental evaluation, with both of their shinobi licenses to be revoked, while Kakashi was reduced to Chunin," he said with a satisfied grin before it turned into a frown. "Although with his luck one of the Uchiha lovers in the clan will pass the two of them without evaluating them, since all of the civilians and many of the members of the clans in Konoha tend to undermine the Hokage. While the civilians think they're the dominant power, while the ninja and Hokage should bow to their whims, thinking they let us live in Konoha," he said, getting a frown from them all as Shizune said, "You are overreacting, don't you think?" she said, getting a negative. "Before the old man instated me as a genin, I was around many of the things they've done, and he had me use my skills in stealth to spy on the civilians. The things they have done and attempted is horrendous," he said, thinking things over. "They siphon off the funds the ninja make to improve the civilians' lives, steal money from the clans in the village. The list goes on, while the civilians line their pockets. Hell, the hospital is so understaffed because they've practically taken all the funds from it, leaving just enough to keep it above water. There are only so few doctors and nurses as is," he said. Hitting the final nail on the head, he said, "And they've attempted to liquidate the belongings of the Senju clan. It's thanks to me, the old man and Integra-chan, that they haven't succeeded. If she wasn't pissed before, she was now, because not only do some helpless sheep think they own her great-grandfather's village, but they have the nerve to take what doesn't belong to them," as she stood up abruptly. "Let's go. The sooner we kill Orochimaru, the sooner we can get to Konoha and I can teach those bastards their place," she said, stomping out the door as Heinkel said to Naruto, "You've unleashed the beast, you know that, right?" she said, getting a fanged grin in return as he shrugged. Look at it this way, now she's going to beat the snake's skull in and then does the same for the civilian council just to knock them down a few pegs," he said as they all followed her. "Oh, assigned destination. Oh, Tsunade, I see you thought on my offer. Just heal me and I'll bring back your precious Naruto-kun and Nawaki and Shizune's uncle," he said, walking forward as she and her apprentice looked him over. The man looked like he was part of the Walking Dead. His skin was paler, if that was even remotely possible, and he was shaking like an abused puppy. She grinned, saying, "Yeah, you see, that isn't happening because of two important factors." Raising an eyebrow, he said, "And what might that be?" Without saying anything, a large fireball appeared flying towards him and his assistant Kabuto as they hopped out of the way as they looked where the fireball came from and saw Naruto and company, as Shizune grabbed Kabuto by the throat and tossed him far from the oncoming mayhem, as she was followed by Heinkel and Yumiko. Izumi and Naruto hopped over to Tsunade as they squared off against Orochimaru, who growled, seeing the boy who ruined his chances of killing his former sensei and seeing the destruction of the leaf. Seeing this, Naruto said, "Hey Orochi-chan, I hope you're still not too mad at me for ruining your plan on eliminating Konoha, or the fact because of me and some friends your little invasion force was stopped and you didn't get to see your future boy toy show off what little skill he has." He continued to growl before grinning, saying, "Ah yes, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, you truly did set my plans back quite a bit, boy, but now that you're alone I'll deal with you, you little nuisance." Regurgitating his sword, he grabbed it and charged as Naruto drew Red Queen as Izumi drew her katana as the two clashed while Tsunade tried to crush his skull from above them. Seeing this, they all jumped away. When her fist made contact with the ground, a large crater formed under her fist, causing Orochimaru's eyes to widen in surprise. Astonishing, it's as if her strength grew since before, but how? From the crater, Tsunade said, "Damn, I can't believe I missed." He wanted to smirk until he heard behind him, "I wouldn't get comfortable if I were you, Orochi Teme." Jumping away, he made distance between them but was still given a deep gash across his back, hissing in pain as a foreign energy was entering his chakra system. "Ah, how disappointing, Orochi-chan. I was thinking Asani would offer more of a challenge." I guess it's true both you and Jiraiya let your titles get to your heads, making you let up on your skills. I guess Suhaim is the only one to actually deserve the title, he said, grinning at the dark look Orochimaru was giving him. That dark look soon turned into a malicious smile as he said, "Boy, you've been a thorn in my side for far too long, but I can remedy that just fine." Raising a few eyebrows, he pulled out 2 dead bodies and started forming a few hand signs, making Naruto's eyes widen, catching on to what he was about to do as he finished when 2 coffins appeared where the bodies were originally as they gradually opened with a deafening groan. With the girls in Konoha, all the girls back home were lounging around in the Hellsing mansion as they either tended to their weapons or read to pass the time, while Morgana was resting with her hat over her face. Sitting up, she said, "Someone just really upset Naruto Koi." Everyone looked at her with raised eyebrows as Zoran said, "And how would you know this, Morgana?" Giving her a glance, she said, "You forget we're connected to our king by not only a mental level but emotional level as well. Something happened during the search for Tsunade and he is pissed." Rip, putting her musket down, asked, "But what is it that could have infuriated him so?" "Didn't you create a technique that let us see what he does?" Hinata asked, with Anko just finishing training with Yugo to keep her mind off the death of her friend. All the more experienced vampires looked at Morgana, who wished she was anywhere but there, as Ceres said, "Master, you didn't happen to forget, did you?" Defending herself, she said, "It's been a while, okay? I'm not perfect." Forming the connection, a large one-sided screen appeared as they all came to see where the screen showed Naruto with Tsunade and Izumi fighting against Orochimaru as 2 coffins opened up to reveal Kushina-sensei. Anko and Yugo said together, seeing their old teacher. "But how are they alive? They died sealing the 9 tails into Naruto-kun." Hinata said, seeing Naruto bow his head as his shoulders shook the killer intent, while low enough to go undetected by Orochimaru and his resurrected parents, it didn't for the others. "Naruto's pissed," Integra said, simply watching Naruto go still slightly when Orochimaru's Kusanagi cleaved his left arm off with her cigar in hand. "Oh, he shouldn't have done that, indeed he shouldn't have," Rip said as Yugo sat next to her. "Why, and what is that coming from Naruto-kun's arm? It isn't blood, that's for sure," Yugo said, looking at the screen as were Anko and Hinata. "That's a mixed case. You see, Naruto-kun is a vampire much like Hinata, so should you and Anko choose to become one of his mates, will gain control over blood and darkness. Ceres would be better at explaining it as she has used this numbers of times," Morgana said as the 3 girls looked over at Ceres, who was still looking at the mirror. "It's been a while since I've used that state, but it's basically a vampire on overdrive. When I used it, I could mold that black mass that came from my arm to act as well an arm. You can grab things with it, anything a hand could do it can, and act as a weapon," she said, giving a sideways glance. "The first time I activated it was when I became a true vampire and sucked someone's blood from their body. Naruto-kun did so years ago, but he never went into an enraged state where the only focus we have while like that is to kill that which enraged us in the most bloodthirsty and destructive way possible," she said, remembering when she slaughtered an army when they killed her friend. "So since Orochimaru desecrated their graves and brought them back to fight him," Anko started. "Your former sensei is going to wish he was never conceived," Integra finished, pointing to the screen as they all watched the screen. Back to the battle, Naruto-kun," Tsunade said, running towards him when he raised his only arm, causing her to halt as everyone within the area felt the now skyrocketing killer intent flood the area, bringing dread to Orochimaru. "I think I may have overstepped my boundaries on this one," he thought, as the killer intent he felt wasn't the average killer intent. It even made his feel like a genin by comparison. No, this killer intent was dark, cold. Many terms came to his mind, but the only term he could properly use to describe it was demonic. When Naruto looked up, his eyes were lidded when they slowly opened. All he saw were 2 red orbs when they snapped open. His posture, his expression, even his eyes lacked emotion, like he was judging Orochimaru's very soul as Naruto looked to his now black arm before returning his focus to Orochimaru, who was once feeling like he had the edge, now feel like death had a firm grip on his heart and was just waiting for the signal to tear it out of his body still beating. "Soichi-kun, you've grown," Kushina said, making him turn his attention to his parents as joy just barely became recognizable in his eyes as he saw his mom and his mom. Naruto wasn't the only one to notice, but Minato looked more feminine and his or her hair was tamer than it was known for. Imagine Ichigo's when he was in the final Bankai during his battle with Aizen, while retaining its natural spikiness as it went down just past her neck and looked more vibrant. Her clothes hid some of her figure, but Naruto and the others could tell she was by no means anything like she was before as a man. Filing that for later, Naruto's focus returned to the now cowering snake as he was about to toss 2 seals at his parents, which were speared by the black mass when Naruto appeared on front of the pale snake with Red Queen in hand, about to go for an overhead slash, only for Orochimaru to duck. Calmly, Naruto said, "What's the matter, Orochimaru? I thought you were going to rid yourself of me. Or are you so frightened by a horribly injured boy?" Everyone couldn't help but shiver at the emotionless tone Naruto held as the black mass solidified into an arm that held his Chikuto while the actual arm gripped his Red Queen. Stalking forward, his expression went from blank to murderous as Naruto said, "Well, if you won't come to me, I'll just have to come to you." Rushing forward, Naruto swung his Red Queen downward as Orochimaru jumped back as a large crater formed from the impact he made when Orochimaru felt something go off in his head, making him block with his Kusanagi as he and Naruto squared off. "You know, Orochi Teme, you picked the wrong person to with today," Naruto growled as the blood arms swung around, bringing his Chikuto across Orochimaru's back, making a sobbing hiss in pain as the blood poured from his back. "Accursed brat," Orochimaru said, seeing Naruto glance at him as if he were inferior to him. As the two clashed, Naruto hadn't suffered a single injury save for his recently removed arm. "Oh," with Tsunade and the others. "Oh, Tsunade-sama." They all heard to see Shizune, Heinkel and Yumiko come back with a headless Kabuto return. "Shizune, I see you took care of the brat," she said, looking at her apprentice who was staring wide-eyed at the recently deceased mother and father of their fiancé. "I know, Shizune, I'm still getting over the fact Minato has," she said, closing Shizune's jaw as it fell to the ground. "Minato, Kushina, it's great to see you two again," Heinkel said, hugging her two friends as they returned it while Yumiko was biting her fist to stop herself from laughing. Minato, why is it that you have a pair of get a sex change when you died?" Yumiko joked, getting a dark glare from the messy blonde who was on her hands and knees with a depressed aura over her head. "I don't want to talk about it. All right, all me and Kushi-chan can say is Kami-sama and her sisters had enough of the shit Konoha threw at our son and brought us back," she said as Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "Still doesn't explain why you're a woman," she said when the body that the girls recovered from their battle against Kabuto changed into a young man. "Bastard used a form of puppetry to force their consciousness into a body to use," Tsunade said, examining the corpse to see that the body was no older than his late teens, early 20s. "Monako, if you're done sulking, we have to finish the hand signs," Kushina said, pulling the former cage up by her ear, getting a cute moan from the blonde as they started the same chain of hand signs as they said at the same time. "Shin no Fukasu, true rebirth," they said at the same time as life returned to them, as their skin regained their tans, as the life returned to their once dead eyes as Kushina stretched. "Man, am I happy to be back with flesh and blood pumping in my veins," Kushina said as Monako agreed, missing the feeling of the sun on his or more silver skin. "Anyone going to explain why the two of you didn't instantly evaporate without the tags being placed on the two of you, and more so why Minato's a woman?" Tsunade roared, ducking under some debris from Naruto smashing Orochimaru into the earth. "I'll explain when Naruto-kun finishes treating Orochimaru like an abused ragdoll," Kushina said, closely watching Naruto fight, or more specifically just watching Naruto in general, as was Monako something everyone present noticed but filed it away for later. "Oh, with Naruto, oh. I'm getting tired of this Orochimaru, to be honest. I thought with you being a Sannin you'd be a real challenge, but I guess I was wrong," Naruto said with a cold indifference. His opponent was a mess. He was littered in cuts that were dripping with blood, and to his wonder Naruto made it impossible to create a new body to recover from. Naruto was about to end him when he got kicked in the chest from Kabuto, who grabbed Orochimaru. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, but this is where we part ways for now," he said as he shined away, getting a snort from Naruto. "Damn, and I was just about to skin him and make a snakeskin belt for Ankoheim. Ooh, but he did drop quite the memento to remember him by," Naruto said as his dark arm gripped the sword that Orochimaru absently forgot after Naruto knocked it out of his hand as he sealed that away. "I got so many swords I might as well start a collection," he said when Shizune tapped him on the shoulder, making him look down to see her holding his severed arm, making him look at himself to see that he forgot about his missing limb in all the excitement. "Oh, I guess I forgot about that. Thanks, Shizuneheim. I'm going to guess that the Kabuto you killed was a fake?" he asked, getting a nod, making him sigh in annoyance. "Snakes, both of them," Oh well, there is always another day, he said, reattaching it back to his body as he experimentally flexed it as the bones popped, making him groan. That is never a comfortable experience and it never gets better, Naruto said, letting himself calm down as the two of them walked back to the others when he said, First, Mom, Dad, how are you two alive? I thought when the jutsu goes incomplete the people that were resurrected would die again. He said, getting a hug from both of them and a kiss on each cheek, making him get mixed feeling. Happy because this was the first embrace he received from his parents, and confused as hell as to why his dad just kissed his cheek. He felt two pairs of something, so he just said, ruining the heartwarming family moment, Dad, why do you have? Smacking him upside the head, Kushina said, how about we head to the hotel and we can explain everything there. Looking at the others they nodded, making him shrug as they all went to the hotel they rented. Hotel. So let me see if I'm hearing you correctly and be free to cut me off to correct me. Kami and her sisters didn't collect Dad's, or should I say Monaco's soul, but it fractured with half being in her sister Shinigami's stomach. He started getting a nod as the two of them sat on either side of him with their heads on his shoulders while the others were listening, just as curious as Naruto. And as a means to make everything up to me, they brought the two of you back, but for Dad he was turned into a woman while you waited for the perfect chance to come, i.e. a couple of hours ago, and while you waited the two have waited, you watched my life with the goddesses, he said, getting more nods. And Kami-sama brought you two back to be with Naruto-kun. But not as his parents but as his lovers. Tsunade asked, unsure how to feel about this, receiving two nods as they tried to bring themselves closer to him as he slowly started to enjoy the contact, even the fact his mom constantly feeling him up. Yeah, it took Monako a while to get used to the idea, but she grew to love him much like I have. I mean, that bastard who pulled Kurama out of me when after I gave birth to Naruto-kun ruined any chance of us having a chance to be parents, but this way we can still be a family, just a more incestual type of family. She explained as the two kunoichi nodded, as incest within a family, be it cousins or mother and son, were nothing new, just odd to those who weren't ninja or in a clan. So that doesn't bother you, Monako? I mean, first you're brought back as a woman and now you're going to have a relationship with your son. Doesn't that seem like a big pill to swallow? Heinkel asked, worried about her friend making such a large transition. She shook her head, saying, I won't lie, when I was first told this it was difficult to accept, but as I watched him I grew to like the idea. Besides, this way I can still be in my son's life, just not in the sense I originally desired, but I won't miss this chance. Shrugging as they all accepted this, as did Naruto. Kazumi asked, so when are we returning to Konoha? How about after we hit the casinos? I'm feeling lucky again, Naruto said, standing up with a grin as the two vampires groaned. What? Tsunade asked. The last time we hit the casinos looking for you, Naruto-kun cleaned all of them out of their money in the matter of a few hours, Heinkel said with a groan. Wait, that was him? That the amount he got is enough to keep a large village running for 3 generations at the least. Surely he lost at least one hand during this? Tsunade asked, astonished, getting a negative from the two. He won every game there without losing once. He's the polar opposite, Tsunade, Kushina said, remembering laughing her ass off in Kami's realm watching him clean out half of the casinos he visited. That's right, ladies. They heard, making their jaws drop, seeing Naruto wearing his usual dress pants with a white button-up shirt, a red sleeveless vest and tie with a black jacket with a black fedora on his head. I can clean up pretty nicely, huh? He said, getting speechless nods in return, making him chuckle as he brought out several scrolls for the girls, each with a different colored dress of the same style. I think we can enjoy ourselves before we have to return, right? He asked, getting a series of nods as they ran to the bathroom to change. As they came out, Naruto couldn't help but whistle appreciatively. Tsunade wore a brown sleeveless dress that left her back bare as well as her arms, as the V reclined down between her, showing ample cleavage, with her great-grandfather's necklace resting on top of her as the slits on both sides of her legs were present, giving her legs free range for movement, with her hair done in a high ponytail. Shizune wore a dark blue version of the dress with a black sash resting on her hips. Izumi wore a black version of the same dress with a blue sash, as her hair was done in a bun with her bangs framing her face. Heinkel wore a gray dress with her gold cross resting on her chest, same for Yumiko, who wore a white version of it with the same cross except it was onyx. Kushina wore a red dress with her hair done in a bun with gold chopsticks, keeping it closed with a Uzumaki swirl on a necklace resting on her chest. And Monako wore a purple version of this with her hair done in a mess like Heinkel, while Yumiko's was straightened as it was now a sea of darkness that came to a low ponytail. Shall we go, ladies? he asked as they all fought over an arm as he formed 5 clones to let them hold onto while he had his arm being held by Minako, who relished in the fact she got the original as she stuck her tongue out to the others as they walked out to the nearest casino to enjoy the night before they had to return to Konoha. "Geez, Naruto-kun, why the hurry? It's barely past sunrise," Kushina asked in tow with Minako, who wore a black tight-fit bodysuit that clung to her figure on top of a fishnet bodysuit with her Junin vest straining against her bust with a pair of shinobi sandals in her cloak she wore during her reign as Minato as it hid her physique. Kushina decided to change her old look and wear a pitch-black kimono with a white obi while under that was a fishnet bodysuit while her kimono top held her chest open with it stopping at her shoulders while a chain was across her chest keeping the top together. Imagine Akitsu's clothes from Sekirei, while wearing a pair of shinobi pants underneath. The others just as curious as to why he insisted they leave early as he said with his hood drawn over his head blocking out the morning sun. "Because the moment we get to Konoha I'd have to deal with Kakashi and Jiraiya and the first thing I'd rather not do is waste 4 hours listening to the civilian council about killing 2 Konoha shinobi 4 if I have to deal with their precious Sasuke-sama and Sakura." "What makes you think you'd have to kill them, Naruto-kun?" Minako asked as the village was just within sight, making him sigh in relief seeing Izumo and Kotetsu manning the gate this morning. "Every time I've dealt with them they came at me with a demand since the Chunin exams. Give Sasuke my jutsu, my clan status, my weapons. The girls I love and Kakashi supported these actions every time. Then Jiraiya tried that bullshit response about wanting to try and bond when I felt the negative emotion coming from him the moment he saw me," he said as they stood at the gate. Staring at the 2 sleeping Chunin, he sighed, pinching the ridge of his nose before shouting, "Izumo, Kotetsu, get your lazy asses up." Jumping, they hit their heads on the roof, making them hold their heads as he smirked at the fearful reaction they had, staring at his eyes glowing from under his jacket along with his fanged grin. "Izumo, Kotetsu," Naruto said, using a bit of his yukai to influence his voice, making the 2 shake. Why yes, Naruto," the 2 said, shaking while holding each other. "What did I tell you both about sleeping on the job? Don't you know how dangerous that is?" he said, getting the 2 to nod. Sorry Naruto, we had just come back from a 3-week-long mission and it was Kakashi's turn to act as guard today, but he never showed so we were picked to take over his shift," Izumo said, getting an uninterested gaze from Naruto as he stared into both their eyes. Is that so? Alright, but if I catch you both sleeping on the job again I'll put you both trough my hellish training, got me?" he asked, getting 2 nods as they paled considerably. "Why yes. But we still need to check you hid Naruto and your," Kotetsu started before he saw the dead 4th Hokage, his wife, and the slug princess with her apprentice with the company of 2 women. "Why Yondaime-sama, Kushina-sensei. Naruto, how the hell is 3 of Konoha's well-known ninja with you when both should be dead?" Izumo asked, getting a shrug. "That's a long story that I'll fill you in on later, you 2. Can we go? I gotta meet the old man," Naruto said with a shrug as they nodded. "Sure, although be careful, Naruto. Kakashi has been in a fit since he got demoted and Jiraiya has been scrounging the streets of Konoha after you humiliated him by putting him on his ass," Kotetsu said, getting a nod from the vampire, Kitsune, as he waved the 2 off before reaching into his pouch pulling out a sucker. The girls learned he smoked one afternoon as he did nearly a pack completely, so they told him he had to moderate that at least 4 cigarettes regardless of the dangerous effects not affecting him, so to appease them he took to sweets as a sub-vice as he had a pouch with various seals holding a large surplus of sweets ranging from suckers to Pocky. "Well girls, we better head to the old man because I have next to little doubt that I'll get some kind of headache dealing with the 4 dumbasses," Naruto said as they walked through Konoha as the civilians whispered, pointing to Minako as they all heard the various whispered. Each one set the girls off even more listening as everyone saw Minako and thought they were finally going to be rid of Naruto or that the Shinigami released their beloved 4th Hokage to kill the demon. Minako in her silent rage thought, "Did I really condemn my son to this misery for 13 years? To be lied to and hated by the people I asked to treat him as a hero? Heads are going to roll when I find the ones who harmed him through the years." Watching Naruto walk through Konoha ignoring them, she thought, "I'll make it up to him even if I have to do that to do so." Hokage's office. I didn't think it was possible to make someone lose all the color on their body like that. Yumiko said, impressed as they walked up the stairs after dealing with the receptionist who decided to be difficult as she tried using several excuses to keep Naruto out of the building until he gave her a rather creative threat for stopping one of the Hokage's ninja from performing his duties as instructed. As he knocked on the door, the Sandaime gave them permission to enter his office as Naruto sighed, pulling down his hood as he pulled open the door, seeing the Hokage's shocked expression as he looked up. Inside the Hokage's office, sitting at his desk, Sarutobi sat in waiting, doing the day's paperwork, waiting for Naruto's arrival. It had been little over a couple hours since he received a message from Naruto saying he was returning with Tsunade, Shizune and 5 others in tow, and he was rather surprised. Within the time the young boy was away, a shadow clone had returned with a large number of battered women seeking refuge in Konoha to act as maids in the Hellsing Manor, as he complied, granting them membership in the village, making them civilians as they reside in the Hellsing Manor. Hearing a knock, he said, "Come in." Staring at the door as it opened, he saw Naruto walk in, followed by his student Tsunade and her apprentice with 3 women, as one shared a strong resemblance to Itachi. About to speak, he saw Kushina and Minato walk in through the door, making him open his hidden compartment, hiding his sake, making him look at the 2 who came back from the dead before getting up, pouring the contents of the jug out the window before sitting down, sighing. "Naruto, can you explain why when I sent you out to get Tsunade and Shizune you come back with your mother who died and Minato who was supposed to be with the Shinigami? And who are the other 3? He asked, getting a chuckle as Minako opened her cloak, showing her bust. That's a long story, Hokage-sama, which we can answer your questions after," she said, making him stare at the fact his successor turned into an attractive woman. 1 hour later, dazed after listening to the story of Minato, or rather Minako, and Kushina's rebirth with the assistance of the Shinigami, Kami and Yami, as a means of making up for Naruto's suffering due to Jiraiya's neglect and deceit and the village's mistreatment of their chosen hero. But to be his mates and the fact that they were willing to go to such lengths to be part of his life like they should have, it amazed him, while all 7 of them chose to be with him baffled him. While the knowledge of why during the massacre, when checking the deaths, that the name Izumi never showed up, let alone if there ever was one. Sighing, he said, "So Kushina, Minako, what's going to happen now?" The 2 looked at each other as Kushina said, "We still intend to keep the clan as the Uzunami Sing clan, and I'll guess that Integra-san has taken the seat?" He nodded, saying, "Yes, although we just got the seat reinstated, although that took a bit of time. So Tsunade, what about you?" Smirking, she said, "I intend on teaching the village their place after overstepping their boundaries. Of course, that's after I throttle my supposed teammate for interfering with the affairs of 2 clans." He nodded, saying, "Very well, Tsunade. For the time being, the inauguration ceremony will be held in a week, but your clan's compound has come into a state of under care due to..." Cutting him off, she said, "I know Sensei Naruto-kun told me everything when you had him and the other girls spy on the civilians, and I intend to get in their asses about that too. Besides, he already offered me and Shizune a room to stay in the Hellsing Manor." He nodded before turning to Izumi. "And you, Izumi-san? Are you going to take over the Uchiha clan?" She shrugged. "I was thinking of making an alliance with Naruto-kun, combining the clans with a marriage contract between myself and him. I don't intend to have a connection with the corruption of my former family, and technically Naruto-kun killed me, Kisame and Zetsu during an attack on him in Tanzaku-gai. I'm just an Uchiha born outside the land of fire that has been on a long mission for several years." He nodded, saying, "Very well, but what about you 2? I'm sensing a similar energy coming from all of you. Really like Naruto? I'm Heinkel Wolf and this is Yumiko. We're old friends of Morgana and the others. As for why we all have similar energies to Naruto is because he marked us as his while making us vampires. Well, Morgana and the others already made us vampires, but he turned them into vampires, Kitsune," Heinkel said, getting a nod from the aged Kage. Looking at Naruto, he said, "You just love making my job difficult, don't you?" Shrugging, Naruto said, "What can I say, Gigi, you make things too easy, and besides, you really believe that anything I do is going to be easy or simple?" He relented, saying, "All right, for the time being, what are you going to do? I mean, you all just waltz here through the front gate. People are bound to hear about you, Minako?" The blonde said, "I'll deal with it when it's necessary. Right now I'm far from pleased to hear how these ingrates dared to praise me while tarnishing the sacrifice I made for them by having my son act as their protector. But I'm even more so disappointed in Heishi, Jiraiya and Kakashi. They were people I called friends and thought I could trust." He nodded. "I know, Minako, but if I were you I'd keep an eye out because Kakashi and Jiraiya have been aiming for Naruto since the exams. I don't doubt they'd try something. Naruto, standing up from his seat, said, "Oh, speaking of the one-eyed Cyclops, Izumo and Katetsu said he abandoned his post at the gate today, seeing as they took it on themselves to guard it after returning from a 3-week-long mission." The aged Kage sported a glare as Naruto told him this, making him frown before Izumi asked, "Sandine-sama, what is the verdict on my little brother's mental exam?" He sighed. It seems Inoichi was intercepted and one of the Uchiha favoring Yamanaka did the exam, passing him and Sakura with perfect scores. And I can say without a doubt that I know where Kakashi is. You're free to leave and congratulations on completing your first solo mission, he said, getting a nod from him as they all vanished in a flash. Looking out the window, he sighs, thinking, Kakashi, Jiraiya, it seems you're in for a rude awakening. Oh, Hellsing Manor, oh. I haven't been here for a while, Minako said, getting a nod from Yumiko, Heinkel and Kushina as they walked through the doors. Welcome back, Naruto-sama. They were greeted by the large group of women wearing maid clothes consisting of the standard maid attire, which was a red dress with frills at the end with a black apron of sorts coming over the front with a button-up shirt with the Hellsing insignia on the apron. He smiled, saying, "Hello everyone, do you know where Integra or the others are?" A young woman, apparently in her early 20s, said, "Lady Integra is with Lady Morgana and the others in the training room, also Lady Anko, Hinata, Yugo are with them." He nodded, saying, "And Gaia returned to Suna with her team a while ago, Naruto-sama, although she said she'd be back eventually," the same girl said, getting one final nod as they walked off. As the maids returned to their duties, Tsunade said, Naruto-kun, what the hell was that?" Looking over his shoulder, he said, "On my way to get you I came across a bandit camp with a large cage filled with women, Yumiko and Heinkel included. I went and killed the bandits and rescued them and gave them the offer of being returned to their home, but they chose to serve me." Surprised, Izumi said, "So you have a clan of vampire maids?" "A side branch, I suppose, to be honest. The way they carried themselves might have been that of trained fighters. Add to the fact that they can gain bloodlines like we can now and might have let them use the blood from the various clans or shinobi that have tried to kill me growing up," he said, shrugging. "How many have tried to kill you?" He stopped for a moment, thinking over the numbers before saying seriously, 85 Uchiha with fully matured Sharingan, 30 Hyuga, 80 Junin, 20 Anbu and Chunin. Oh, and funny fact, the whole vampire thing negates the blind effect of the MS, and since I carry those bloodlines and you all drink my blood," he started, getting surprised looks. "Then we gain what you have," Kushina said, activating her Sharingan before it changed to a lotus and again with a whirlpool forming in the center before it they rippled outwards, turning into the Rinnegan. "That's right, although it will take a bit of time to adjust to them and learn how to switch to the one you want," he said, getting a nod from the others. Oh, Hellsing training ground, oh. "Hey girls, I'm back," he said, getting tackled by a purple and yellow blur as he fell to the ground. "Foxy-kun, Naruto-koi," Anko and Schrödinger said, straddling him with swirls in his eye before the two were picked up by Morgana and Zoran. "He just came home, the last thing he needs is a head trauma, you two," Morgana said, getting a nod from them. "Welcome back, Naruto-koi," Sarah said, helping him up as he was kissed on the cheek by her, which he accepted. "Kushina-sensei, we missed you," Anko and Yugo said, giving the redhead a hug, which she returned with a smile and a bit of tears. "I missed you girls too," she said, getting a smile from the others before Naruto snapped his fingers. "Oh, Anko-chan, I just remembered during my little scuffle with Orochi Teme, he was courteous enough to leave a gift that I thought would be perfect for you," he said, pulling out a scroll and tossed it to the purplet. Opening the scroll, the contents were expelled, showing the Kusanagi getting wide eyes from the others as he said, "I wanted to skin him for you and make a jacket, but that's going to have to suffice, I'm afraid." She grinned, showing him her fangs, giving him a kiss, saying, "While I would like a new jacket, having his prized sword is just as nice, thanks, Foxy-kun." Looking at her teeth, he saw Yugo had fangs as well as he was led up, saying, "Well, I have to say it's great to be back home. We've had to deal with Kakashi and Sasuke, who kept demanding we become his and demands access to the clan's compound and techniques when he wants. We've put them in their place, though," Integra said, getting a grin. "I do apologize about my foolish little brother," Izumi said, getting a raised eyebrow from the others as Yugo looked closer before her eyes widened. "Itachi, Naruto-kun, why is Itachi here?" she asked, getting a sigh from the Uchiha. "There never was an Itachi, Yugo-san," That was a cover my father made as clan head since he needed a strong heir but got me instead, so he snuck into the hospital and created another certificate saying Itachi, she said, getting wide eyes. So Itachi was a disguise? Anko said, getting a nod as the others shrugged. So Naruto-kun, how does it feel to be back home? Morgana said, getting a slight smile from him. Pretty good, a little tired though, and the village saw Minako-chan walk through the front gates, so I can't imagine it would be long until Kakashi or the Toad Bastard to come or even the council, he said, getting a sigh from Minako. Don't worry about it, Sochi, we'll deal with that road when we get there, but she started when another maid came into the room. Naruto-sama, you have visitors at the front door, 2 gentlemen and another young gentleman with black hair shaped in the form of a duck's rear end, one with long white hair and another with spiky gray hair. Do you wish to see them or would you like for us to send them away? She asked as Minako huffed. Turn them away. I'm tired and don't feel like dealing with either of them at the moment. If they persist, then feel free to use force, he said, getting a bow as she left. 12th time since you've been gone with those 3. You'd think they'd learn by now, Anko said, getting a snort. I can imagine what Jiraiya would want, since before I left to get Su-chan and Shizu-chan, he tried to accompany me on the mission to train me. I have little doubts that he'd try and make me how I pretended to be with some BS excuse of being too powerful for my own good, he said, getting a nod from the others before they all began to converse until the dinner bell was sounded as they all left for the dining room. Oh, Minako and Kushina's room. Oh, Minako-chan, tell me what's wrong? You've had a depressed look on your face since we walked through the gates, Kushina said, sitting on their bed wearing just her panties while Minako wore a pair of pajama shorts and a loose shirt. Sighing, she said with her head in her hands, walking through the village, I heard the villagers talk about how the Shinigami let me go to kill my own son and how I came to finish what I started and remove the plight that haunted the village for years. Her shoulders shook as she said, I sacrificed so much for their safety, our lives, our son's happiness, for what, 13 years of misery because of my short-sightedness in thinking they'd accept our son as their savior? Kushina, sitting next to her, put her arms around Minako as she continued crying. And the part that hurt worse is the face he had while walking through the street. He didn't show an ounce of emotion. No pain, no anger, no sadness, nothing. I know we watched over him from Kami's realm, but to see him just walk through it is a whole different matter entirely. Minako, Kushina said sadly, watching the blonde. I should have just brought you and Naruto to the manor and sealed us in there until Kyuubi got tired and left, she said, getting a pat on the back. This has really been eating at you, hasn't it? Kushina said, getting a nod from the blonde who looked at her. You want to make it up to him? She said, getting a nod. So much it hurts, Minako said, wiping her tears from her eyes as Kushina kissed her softly before pulling back. Then go to his room and make it up to him no matter what you have to do, Kushina said, getting a nod as she got up. Thanks, Kushi-chan, and that's exactly what I'm going to do no matter what it takes, she said, leaving the room as Kushina watched her leave with a smile before giggling perversely. Enjoy yourself, Minako-chan, because I'm getting the next one eventually, she thought, turning the light off and laid down on her bed, getting under the blanket, closing her eyes. Naruto's bedroom. Sitting on his bed, she sighed, hearing the shower run in his bathroom, feeling her heart pound in her chest, trying to control her breathing. She thought, come on, Minako, you can do this. You fought an army single-handedly and faced the 9 tails. This should be an easy matter for you. So caught up in her thoughts, she didn't hear the water stop as the door opened to reveal Naruto wearing a pair of loose sweatpants and no shirt, with a towel around his shoulders, with his hair still slightly damp as his upper torso was still slightly wet. Jumping, she heard, Minako-chan. What's up, you need something? She blushed slightly, seeing his hair come slightly over his eyes while seeing his toned chest before swallowing as she said, I wanted to talk to you, Naruto-kun. Were you busy? Shaking his head, he said, sitting next to her, Nah, I was just getting ready to go to sleep, but I can spare a bit of time for you, so what's up? You've seemed off since we got to the village? Breathing in deeply with a shuddered breath, she said, How? He raised an eyebrow as she continued, How did you deal with the villagers? I've heard about what they've said since we've walked through the village, and I want to know how you can just walk through Konoha and not feel anything. He sighed, saying, The reason I don't feel anything from them is because it doesn't matter. I've been beaten, abandoned and verbally abused since I was a child. She put her head down as he continued, There's nothing in the world they can do that could be worse than anything in the past. I've experienced their worst. But you shouldn't have had to go through that. Minako argued as she cried into his chest as he wrapped an arm around her. I just wish I could make things right, she cried as he lifted her head by her chin, gently making her look into his eyes. Minako-chan, he said, wiping tears from her eyes, getting her attention. You want to know how you can make things right? He asked, getting a nod before her eyes widened as his lips connected to her own as they slowly drooped shut until he pulled back. Stop worrying about the past. Yes, you nor Kushi-chan could have been there for me growing up. I accepted that, but you're both here now, and while it's not in the way we all originally wanted, we've come to enjoy this aspect of it all in the short time it's been, he said with a soft smile before she pulled him on top of her on the bed. Panting as she laid curled into his side, she moaned, feeling his seed fill her to the brim with his member still inside as they pulled the sheets over each other. Oh, Naruto-kun, that was amazing. Now I see what the others were talking about, she said, holding onto him as she put her head into the crook of his neck. Despite the pain between your legs and the possible limp in the morning, he said with a grin as she sighed tiredly. Worth it, was all Minako said before falling asleep as he kissed her forehead before joining her. Oh, the next morning. Oh, I see someone enjoyed themselves last night. Well worth the pain, huh? How would you rate him? Integra said with a grin as the other girls watched Minako walk into the dining room wearing one of Naruto's shirts and a pair of shorts. The other girls couldn't help but chuckle at the telltale signs of a night with Naruto. Noticeable limp, unearthly glow, pleased stupid expression, and a bow-legged stance which led to the Uzumaki seal of approval. Sitting in her seat, she said breathlessly with a grin. Oh yeah, 10s across the board, no question. When I get more stamina I'll have to give it a second go. Oh, now I really want to go at it, Kushina said with a giggle, getting a laugh from the others as Naruto chuckled, enjoying the meal the maids prepared. Naruto-sama, it appears that there are Anbu at the gate, one being Yugo-san. Shall I go see what they need? A maid said, getting a nod from him as she left the room. I wonder what it could possibly be this time, Kushina said, getting a shrug from the others who were just as curious. Could be a follow-up from Jiraiya, Kakashi and the civilians, seeing if the rumors are true, Minako said, getting a nod from the others as the maid returned. Neko-san said that a council meeting has been called and it is necessary that you all attend, the girl said, getting a raised eyebrow from everyone. Was this meeting called by the Hokage? Integra asked, getting a positive, making them relent as they all got up. Tell Neko-chan we'll be right out in a couple of minutes and we can leave all right, Naruto said as she bowed before leaving to deliver the message. Oh, council chambers. Oh, we're here as requested now. What's up that it couldn't wait for a half hour? Integra said, sitting in her seat as head of the Uzunami Sing clan. Apparently, it's been rumored that 2 dead Konoha shinobi were seen traveling back to Konoha with Naruto-kun as he brought my student Tsunade-chan and her apprentice with him and 3 more companions along the way, and wished to verify that, Sarutobi said, with Jiraiya, Kakashi and Sasuke standing next to him glaring down at Naruto. I'd be willing to tell you if you told the gray-haired one-eyed wonder and the walking pile of sleaze to redirect their glares if they wish to keep their sight, and for Kakashi I'd take both your eyes, Naruto said, blasting the 2 with killer intent, making the 2 buckle as they averted their gaze. So you wanted to know if I brought 2 dead Konoha ninja back to the village? Well, why don't you ask them yourself? He said before whistling as the doors opened, making all those present stare wide-eyed, seeing Minako and Kushina walk in with the rest of the group. Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya and Kakashi said, jumping down to hug them both before meeting a Rasengan to the chest courtesy of Minako as they were chained to the wall. Minato-sensei, Kakashi said weakly before the 2 were met with a glare from their former student. Sensei, the end. Now we will see you in the next video.